Right, let me mute myself. Check 1 2 1 2. How's my audio? Thank you everybody who joined us for the pre-show. Vinnie Mac, we are starting the main show now. Welcome, but we're going to start the main show. So come on over. The link is in the. Oh no, wait, it was there? Where did it go? The link is it should be in here in this chat here. I think I'll put it. It's above. Right, so have a look there. It's above, and join us for the main show, for the live stream. I'll see you on the other side. Oh, Mario DK, I will bring you into the on air room in just a sec. Mario DK is going to guest host with me. See you on the other side. Why'd you leave? You can mute yourself if you're not ready. Oh, Mario DK, I don't want to come into this room. Oh dear. Well, Mario DK, please let me know when you are ready to come into this room. Mario DK's gone. Mario DK dusted. Well, we're going to start anyway. It says I don't have permission to speak. Yeah, well, it should let you speak once I bring you in. I'll check the permissions. It should have. I don't know why. Did you leave the room? Did you leave the room? You should be able to speak once I bring you in. Are you able to speak now? Let me check your things. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. That must have been just a technical issue. I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't know. It just says waiting room and.
Oh, in the waiting room, you can't. I mean, you can talk in there, but it's that room is literally just so for people can come in and.
Okay, I think I got it now. Never mind.
And I can bring you into this room. So that room you can't do. Basically, that room it doesn't really serve any other function other than this. If there's more than one person in there together, they can talk with each other. So I've got it set up like that, but you can't do anything else in there. It's not. It's just literally so you wait to come into this room. Anyway, welcome. How you doing, Maya?
I'm doing okay. I went on vacation like a week or two ago, and
ooh, nice.
I'm back now, so it's good to be back home.
Oh, awesome! Did you go somewhere nice?
Yeah, I went to California.
Ooh.
Went to Universal Studios.
Oh, nice.
Went to Super Nintendo World.
Oh, you did. You have to tell us all about that as well. I'm just gonna check this audio. I know there's a double audio, everyone. I'm just checking. How does it sound? Does it sound okay? Check 1 2.
Testing 1 2 3.
You can hear Mario okay, right?
Testing 1 2 3.
It sounds good. Alright, okay. I'll pause that now. Okay, I know it's a double audio, but it's just like it's difficult to like test the audio. Let me check the levels on this thing. This music's too loud, I'll tell you that. This music is way too loud. It's so loud. Okay, so we just want like subtly in the oops, not too loud, just subtly in the background. This week we are playing a Pikmin. It's the aesthetic Pikmin lo-fi hip-hop mix. Because there were some people, naming no names, who were complaining about the Final Fantasy VII lo-fi I play every week. I was like, fine, some other music then, alright? And Kike said that he was going to find some Pikmin music. He didn't. He didn't find any Pikmin music. I wouldn't have found this. Right? I found it. He said he didn't like this or whatever. This sounds fine to me. It's fine. It's just background music anyway. So welcome everybody. I hope the tweet. Oh, I need to do the message out. Let me just message everybody. Mario DK says he's going to be back in 1 second. So I'm going to message everyone in the Discord just to say we are online. We are live. Wait. Huh? Yeah, oh my god, I ordered the Papyrus and Mithra amiibo. They arrived today, but the box was damaged. So, I'm not happy about that. I'm going to be sending them back to Amazon. Because I want to keep them in the box, but the box is damaged. Live on YouTube. Live stream show. Oh wait, I'm sorry, at everyone. At everyone. At everyone. And the tweet should have already gone out on YouTube. Mario DK will be back in a second. Welcome, Dank. Yes, you are. Hello. Welcome. Can you hear me okay? Johannes, welcome. Vinnie Mac, welcome. No headphones. Mousy, you know, I don't know what to say. Mousy has not got her headphones, so she cannot listen to the show. That she surreptitiously she listens to the show every week with her headphones, skiving off work. This week she forgot. I don't know. She can't find any headphones anywhere to listen. I don't know. But apparently she can't. She's sad that she can't listen. Wait, hang on. Let's pop out the chat. Pop it out. Welcome everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back, Mario. Okay, we're going to get started now. I think there's some people listening. Not Mousy, because she's forgotten her headphones. But you know, Mousy, that it is what it is. Mousy, it is what it is. I don't know how Mousy can't find any headphones. But I guess like because she's skiving off work, she doesn't want to be like obvious about it. But she's skiving off work, so yeah, Mousy. It's too bad. You can listen to the VOD though. You'll hear me. You'll hear me on the VOD saying, Mousy. Mousy, you don't have your. I shouldn't have said that actually. Ignore that. Ignore that. Okay, let's get started. Hi, it's RJH. Welcome. Today, my guest host is Mario DK. So let me get this straight. Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
It's been a couple of weeks, I think, since the last show.
Yes. Since you've been on, it's been a little while. I did have a show last week. But yeah, you was on a few weeks ago, and then you went on vacation for a little while. So we are back now. So actually, yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off as we always do with the Famitsu sales. Mario has actually brought some data that we're going to discuss in detail. We have different topics. We've also had some breaking news. We'll put it in the rumor territory, but it's a pretty strong rumor about PS5 Slim, which I don't think is crazy earth-shattering news personally, because they always make these slim consoles. Like every single PlayStation's had a slim mini console thing, so like I don't think it's that shocking, to be honest with you. You could say the other news would be that there's a PS5 Pro, because it's like it doesn't feel like there's a need for one, really, to making a PS5 Pro. But don't forget, they wouldn't be launching it this year anyway, so it'd be a year or two away. So Mario DK, I hope this music is not sending you. Oh, you can't hear this music, can you? Oh, never mind.
No.
You can't hear it. That's another thing. In order to get you to hear, there is a way to do it, but the software is so obtuse to set up that I just haven't managed to do it. So don't worry.
Okay, I'll play my own music in the background.
Okay, you can have your own music. So we're gonna start off with these Famitsu sales. Now we had a couple of new releases. No, we had a handful, maybe a handful of new releases this week that we can go over. And in our Discord server, we have weekly bets about, you know, different things, what's going to chart, and you know, and so on. And a very interesting bit about the Atelier Marie remake, which launched at the end of last week, so it's in the chart this week. I won that bet, but the other bets, I was very confident about that. I bet like 1,000 coins, and Mousy's like, "Oh my god, you won 2,000 coins!" I won 2,000 back, right? I was like, "Yeah," because I was very confident about it. That's why I bet so much. But the other ones I lost, but that's because of what you'll see what happens in the chart. These are Atelier games. We're making me lose bets. Mario DK. Mario DK, I think, doesn't participate in the bets, but yeah, I there was a bet that was on install base. You probably remember me mentioning this, where I lost.
The Bayonetta one?
Yes, the Bayonetta one, because I thought that Atelier Ryza 3 was going to be in the chart that week, and that's 3 SKUs, and it would have pushed down Bayonetta Origins, but that's not what happened. And plus, all those other games dropped out the chart after 1 week, like what were those games called again? Other Koei Tecmo games, coincidentally, the what's it called?
I think it was just Fallen Dynasty or whatever it was, something like that.
Yeah, and they dropped out the chart quick time.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, Mario DK. And I lost.
Well, it's been kind of hard to predict with like the strength of the Switch in its 7th year and the catastrophic legs of like really all PlayStation software. So it's not like it's understandable that predictions are pretty difficult these days.
Right, so I'll explain to you what happened with the Atelier Ryza bet and why I lost as well. So let's go over the software and I'll explain to you what happened to Mario DK. Now Mario DK, you can stay for like an hour, something like that, right?
I could stay for like an hour and a half, 2 hours actually.
Okay, that's awesome. So what we'll do is we'll do the software, the charts part, and then we'll get into what you want to talk about first, just so we make sure that we've got that in and before you have to go.
Yeah.
So, first the software charts. Now, number one, we had, I think, still number one from I think it climb back last week. Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, if you go to the first page of the Media Create thread and you look at like the first post, Chris like adds the top 30 and all the increases and decreases.
That is true, but you know we can also lose.
I don't know if it's you just want to look at the visual, but just wanted to point it out.
Basically, the reason I have that there is for the visual, yes, because it's more interesting to look at. But what we can do, I know Chris does do that, but
it's just if you want to look at like the increases and the decreases.
But we can look at niche barrier, which again is kind of better to look at than the other one.
Yeah, that website is great because I actually used a lot of that data for calculating the tie ratios in my charts that I did.
Do you remember? I'm sure I told you about this site. You didn't know about it. I'm sure I told.
I think it was you, or maybe I think I had seen it before. Like I had clicked on it on install base, but I never like gone back to it. But like you kind of showed me how like thorough and deep some of the information is.
Yes, they've been adding new features now. I think this is someone in install base makes this site.
Yeah, I wish I knew who they were. I could probably go back and find it, but
I think I know who it is. I know who it is. It's the person who does the Comeg.
Oh, the guy with the donkey, one of
the Donkey Kong avatar. Character. Yeah, I think it's that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just what I think. That because they were posting the Amazon. They started posting the Amazon
Yeah, they're a trooper.
ranking.
They just
And then shortly
they're on
after, it appeared on here as well. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
it must be that person that's doing it then.
Yeah.
So,
They're devoted.
yeah, I know this site is very good. It's very good.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody listening. So let me just make sure that everyone can see. So we can see that Tears of the Kingdom actually went up by 1% this week.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know how you feel, Maruduke, but I feel like this is going towards, it's like in evergreen territory, getting into evergreen territory now. They probably won't stay at 18k. It probably dropped down to like, 5k, 3k, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's especially with the hardware finally falling back to earth.
Oh, that's funny that all those tourists must have gone home, Maruduke. They all went home in the beginning of summer. All at the same time.
It's just, I think some of the movie and the Zelda hype and direct hype is kind of like worn off. But still, like, even 60,000, I know we haven't gotten into hardware yet, but still, it's like, that's still amazing in the 7th year of a console.
Yeah, and I mean, that game came out in May. We're in July now, so...
Yeah, it's over 2 months now, and it's basically flat, is what it is, and that's tremendous.
Exactly. So it may have been possible for. I mean, Atelier Marie is very close. It's like 2,000 units away, so it could have. It would have been good if it could have got to the top, but it just didn't quite make it. With especially the fact that it's split over 3 SKUs, which is obviously that's gonna bring it down the chart a little bit. So our first new release is Atelier Marie Remake. This is a remake of a PS1 game. And this game's very interesting from a sales perspective, especially because it is a remake of a game that was originally on the PlayStation 1. And most of the Atelier games up until recently were mainly released on PlayStation consoles. I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 on a DS or something like that, but they were almost all on the PlayStation consoles until a few years back. Someone in Gus was like, "Oh snap!" and they hit the they hit the emergency button, and the sign's like, "Oh, Sony's not making a handheld anymore. What are we gonna do? And there must be some other handheld we can release these games on. What are we gonna do?" And then it's like, "Okay, let's release a whole bunch of them on the Switch." So they ported a whole back catalogue of Atelier games to the Switch, and then they started releasing the games day and date on the Switch, each new Atelier game. So what happened, and I knew I was meant to grab that chart. Someone made a chart of it. I don't have it in front of me. But when this a few years back, no, in fact, no, what we can do is we can use niche barrier. Niche barrier to the rescue. We're going to look it up here. So when these Atelier games first started coming out, and the only thing you can't do on here is you can't compare more than 2 games, if you know what I mean. You can compare games, but you can't compare more than 2 games. So yeah, when they first started releasing these games, they were heavily skewed, sold more on PlayStation. This is back in like 2018ish or something like that, right? Which is understandable because that's where the audience was at that time. But they were consistent with the releases, and over time, an audience grew on the Switch, and I think what happened was that the audience on PlayStation was declining anyway, as this happened with many franchises, right? So Gus kind of got ahead of the curve by starting to put the games on the Switch. And if they hadn't, and we'll see with today's results for Atelier Marie, if they hadn't have done that, their sales would have been halved, more than halved. It's like half, right? Something like that. So this is what they started doing. Hang on, let me just sort this by. So this is now, and if we go back and see when they first started doing this, you can see here. You can see literally where they started doing it here. 2019. Then it's just a whole bunch of them. They started pouring to the Switch. Atelier Shadi, Atelier Escha and Logi, Atelier Aisha, Atelier Dust Trilogy, and then it's Atelier Rise, and then it started getting day and date releases here. Atelier Riser 2, I thought Atelier Ryza 1 was on it as well. It was on the Switch as well. I can't see it here, but anyway. Yeah, Atelier Ryza 2. And you can see the split. Obviously, it's far more on PlayStation. 43,000 first week on PS4, 30,000 on the Switch. And this is, yeah, I don't know where is Atelier Ryza 1? Why is that not there? It's not there at all.
It's further back. I think it.
Oh, was it before that? Oh, okay. Is it back here? Oh, okay. Oh, they started even before back then. Oh, you're right.
I don't know.
Right. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So this is when they started. They started porting them. Actually, they started porting them in 2017. I was wrong about that. They started in 2017. So they literally started like this is December. So they were pretty quick, and they started doing all these releases like one after the other. Atelier Lydie and Sewell, Atelier Meruru, Atelier Totori, Atelier Verona, all these ones. And then yeah, they were releasing them on Switch, and then they even in 2019 they released this on the Vita. In 2019, Nelke and the Legendary Alchemist, Ateliers of the New World, in 2019, and you know obviously didn't sell that great. But yeah, the sales on Switch at first were not that great either. But it took a while to pick up, right? So here, look here, Atelier Lulua was, you know, it's 2-1 on PlayStation and PS4. This is before PS5 was released, obviously. It's 2-1. You know, 10,000 on Switch and 22,000 on PS4 in 2019 for Atelier Lulua, right? And then Atelier Ryza, when that one came out, again it was 2-1. 25,000 first week on Switch, 53,000 on PS4. It's more than 2-1 on PlayStation in 2019. That was September 2019, right? So then we get to that's what I'm saying. This is what happened in just a few short years. And then there's a whole bunch of ports here that they ported. I think these ones didn't even chart or something. Maybe these are, I don't know, what are these? There's no numbers for these ones. Either they didn't chart or these are like new editions or something. Maybe new editions of the same game. And then, yeah, so we saw here Atelier Ryza 2. But at that point, this split it's not 2-1 anymore. You got 30,000 on the Switch, 30.6 thousand.
It's reversed.
It's starting to change at this point. It is in 2020. And in PS4, it's 43.9 thousand, right? And then, I don't know what all these are. These blank ones.
Those are just the deluxe versions, so they're, I think when they show up on the chart and like Famitsu, they just combine them all.
Okay. There's deluxe. Oh, okay, so you mean they're like the deluxe boxes or whatever, the special editions.
Yeah, I think they're just listed for data purposes, but they're all
okay. So it's not like they didn't sell.
They
just
yeah.
Oh, okay. So Johannes has said, where did you type that, Johannes?
Because like you'll see them on Kong, like on the pre-orders, like the different editions, but on the final like release week, it's basically only just.
Okay. Johannes says those are trilogy packs, but you can buy them individually on digital. The trilogy packs are the physical ones. Okay, thank you for the information. Okay, got it. Right, so that's why you don't see them with a number on here. It's just to be thorough. They've put all the editions on there. So next, so this is another re-release here. We can see that one actually did sell more on Switch, but it's a re-release, right? This is in 2021. 2022, it's getting close. Okay, so this is Atelier Sophie 2, a follow-up to a game that was maybe PS3, PS4, I'm not sure. 18,000 first week, 18.9 thousand first week on Switch, 22,000 on PS4. This is what's happened. So imagine if they just didn't make any Switch versions at all. What would have happened? We've got the Atelier 1 and 2 pack. I mean 1 and 2, Ryza 1 and 2 pack. But those games, these are just a double pack of the games that had already released. And then Atelier Ryza 3, which was earlier this year actually, that was in March. And then by this time they added PS5 SKU. PS5 was 14.7 thousand, PS4 was 17.2 thousand, and Switch was 31.1 thousand. Now, that when
even
when you add it up,
1-to-1.
it's like it's just more on PlayStation if you add the two SKUs. Just
50-50.
more.
I mean, that's within the margin of error.
It's within the margin of error. It's almost 50-50, right? So we've gone from 2-1 on PlayStation to 50-50, right? This is earlier this year in March. Now, it's now July, and granted, this is a remake, not a brand new Atelier game, right? So you're always gonna get less sales for a remake, right?
There's probably more people on the Switch audience that haven't played it that are interested. So
than originally played it on a PS1. It's a PS1 game, right? So
that's my guess as to why it's.
Oh no! What's this pop up? I hope you can't. Can you
2-to-1.
see this? You didn't see it. Did you see that? It was my antivirus thing. Just popped up everything like, you need to check your thing. Like now your computer's gonna implode. I've got rid of it.
I missed it.
I'll deal with it later. Yeah. I'll do it later. So now Atelier Marie, which is very interesting. We got the Switch version launched at 16.1 thousand. The PS5 version is about 5,000. The PS4 version was 3.4 thousand. So when we add that up, you've got almost 2-to-1 on Switch, basically. Mm-hmm. So not quite, but almost, right? So it's
basically 2-to-1.
Sorry?
It's basically 2-to-1.
Yeah, it's basically 2-to-1. So it's that complete. And so we talked about what from 2017, 2018. When was Atelier the other one? From Atelier 1, Atelier Riser 1, it was 2-to-1, right?
Yeah.
When was I? Oh yeah, that was in 2019. In just a few short years. It's just 4 years. That's what's happened. So that's pretty significant. Now, I had been looking at the Amazon charts, I've been looking at the store charts, and we had a bet on our server about whether the Switch version would sell more or sell less or even or whatever, right? And
were these results in line with the Amazon numbers or
roughly?
Okay.
Yeah, roughly. It's always hard to tell. I think actually it might have even looked like there was more PlayStation copies on Amazon. I can't remember now, but I felt confident enough to bet that it was. I thought it was going to be 2-to-1. I actually thought it was going to be 2-to-1. So that's Atelier Marie. So we'll see here what happened here. And another thing that's happened, Mario DK, is with the PS4 and the PS5 versions, often there's a PS4 and PS5 version of everything, right? Or most games. Mm-hmm. So what's happened now is that the PS4 sales are now going down. Yeah. So I thought the PS4 version of Atelier Marie would make a top 10. It did not. So I lost a bet because of that.
Well, I think the nicher the game is, the more it's going to sell on PS5. Because you can tell that it's a pretty niche title. Because even on Switch, it only sold 16,000 compared to like the 30,000 that the last mainline game sold, the Reza 3. So it's about half, which is still pretty respectable. I mean, if you look at the sell-through, it sold through like pretty much most of its Switch initial shipment. But I think that's the reason why the PS5 version pretty handily outsold the PS4 version, I would say.
Yeah, so that trend has been happening with some other games as well, which we're going to go into. Johannes says that the first Sophie one was a PS3 game, so that's going quite far back actually. Yeah, it was PS3. I see, right. So that was a PS3 game. The sequel was like last year. I think it was last year. Yeshua says Gus started the release on Switch during the first year. Yeah, we saw that. Riser 1 sold. Did it sell out at launch? I didn't know it sold out. Oh, right, so there was like supply issues with that one. So let's look at the rest of this chart before we discuss everything else. Number 3 was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with 9.7 thousand.
Yeah, Wave 5 DLC just came out, so not surprising.
Okay, yeah, that came out last week, was it?
Yeah, it actually was flat. It was like plus 0%. It's showing, so
yes,
it's basically just like Zelda. It's just remained flat week over week.
0. It's like flat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. So it's still about the same for that one. I'm just gonna move this over here. So I'll keep doing that. Number 5 was number 5. Sorry, number 4. Because I'm looking at PS5. Number 4 was Final Fantasy 16 on the PlayStation 5, which sold an additional 8.5, almost 8.6 thousand. Total is creeping up towards 400,000. It's 396,000. I feel that this may not be able to get to 500k thousand, although it's going to be there already when you include digital. Now this game is now fourth week? I can't remember now. 3rd or 4th week, MaroDK, do you remember?
It's the 4th week.
The 4th week. So the 4th week, and it's minus 39%. Now it is dropping pretty fast, especially when you compare it to Final Fantasy VII Remake, although that did have the benefit of releasing in the middle of the pandemic when that was at its height. So, you know, that kind of, I think it's sold out. Actually, I think it actually was supply issues with that, and it's sold out. And then the digital was like crazy high because obviously the pandemic, right? So anyway, this game does not face that situation, but it is dropping pretty, you don't necessarily want to see it dropping that fast. This will probably be in the chart for maybe a few more weeks. I'm not sure. What do you think, MaroDK?
Extremely strong.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. MaroDK's giving you spoilers. It's spoilers. Yes, we're going to talk about that.
It's bad. There's no way to get around it. This is like, in terms of the percent drops, it's like now in line with like 7 Remake, which is not good because that game had more of an explosive start.
Yeah.
I mean, it was already like a part 1 of a remake, so that was already going to make it front loaded, and then it was like got a bit of a COVID boost. So
it did, yeah. It had a very big boost.
Yeah, but this game is launching like, middle of June, like no more shortages. They've been advertising it for like 2 years now. These are what the sales are going to be, and I don't know why whatever this 18-month plan is, which is the
18-month plan is discount the game. Like,
yeah, it's just a meme.
They haven't got a plan that any other publisher can't. What can they do that no other publisher has ever done before? Like,
it's just more empty words, that don't mean anything, but you can throw out there, and then you can kind of like confuse people, but the numbers don't lie. And this is gonna be one of the worst, if not the worst, like mainline, like worst selling mainline Final Fantasies in Japan. Yeah.
So to be clear, like the sales in Japan are bad. There isn't any way of sugarcoating it. It is bad. Now, what we're gonna get onto later after this is Square Enix's statement to IGN, regular IGN, not IGN Japan, regular IGN. Talking about worldwide sales, addressing a Bloomberg article that was talking about Japanese sales, which are bad. I don't think there is no other way of putting it. These sales, it's not good. This is like we're talking about Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4, right? Is like has never. it's never they've barely sold no game individual game has ever released and sold like more than like I mean the original release I think Pikmin 3 maybe, but the original release has never sold more than like more than 2 million, right? It was like 1 point something million or something.
Yeah, I think. Well, to be fair, like a brand new Pikmin game has never launched on like a successful console,
That
so
is true.
you can argue it's kind of been held back in many ways. But even like 3 Deluxe, which is like a re-release, has far outsold 16 in Japan. It's
Has
in
it?
its own. It's 3 Deluxe. I think I read it. Somebody made a comment that like they
Gotta fact check this.
it was in their financials and it was somewhere between like 2 to 3 million, and it was like I want to say 2 million, at least 2 million. I don't want to say 3.
Did it really?
And it was pretty heavily slanted in sales towards.
You're right, it did.
Yeah, it
But
was.
to
like
be fair, this came out in 2020, so I mean, it's not charting now, but it was charting for quite a long time, and it launched very close to the couldn't quite make the Kirby barrier, but launched very close to the Kirby barrier, which I've explained to people before as 189,000, the Kirby barrier.
And they're both deluxe games. So
they're both deluxe games. They're both ports, so there's that. Jago. They're both ports, okay? So I'm not getting into this again, honestly. Every week Jago
but
goes into
Pikmin
this.
3 is newer because most people had a Wii, but no one really had a Wii U.
No one had a Wii U. So this was a new game to like pretty much everybody. So the next game. So yeah, you're right. It did sell more than I thought. Actually, it sold more than I thought. So the next game probably will launch pretty high. So anyway, our discussion was like, is this going to, because it's the way it's tracking now? It's tracking like pretty much in line with Final Fantasy 16's pre-orders, and it's like, is this going to sell like the same or maybe more than Final Fantasy 16? And for us to be even putting Final Fantasy 16 and Pikmin in the same sentence together is wild. It's absolutely wild, right? Pikmin is like, because I was talking about Kirby, that's a B tier Nintendo franchise. Pikmin ain't even B tier, it's C tier, right? In terms of sales, in terms of when you look at different Nintendo franchises, it's like a C tier franchise in terms of sales.
There's a very realistic chance that Pikmin 4 outsells 16 worldwide, like in the long run.
Worldwide, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. They have to sell a lot for Pikmin. It would sell a lot for Pikmin.
16 is leaning more heavily towards the West, and then recently Pikmin 3 leaned more heavily towards Japan.
You think so?
So you could argue like they kind of weigh each other, like kind of cancel each other out.
What did they do in it that made it lean towards Japan?
I just think just the character designs and the game series is kind of a bit weird and
it is weird,
whimsical. But I think it's fair to say that Pikmin 4 will have better legs than 16. I don't know by how much. That's just a prediction I have. But I think regardless, they'll be close. Like I think.
And they shouldn't. But Mario DK is a wild thing. They shouldn't be close. They shouldn't be close at all.
Like, that's the point. We shouldn't even be questioning or even pondering the idea that, hey, maybe they'll be close. You know, like they might both get to around 4 million lifetime. That's just with the PS5 version.
Once there'll be a PC version of Final Fantasy 16 eventually.
So it just shows the lack of vision, and like there's just no consistency, I would say, in Final Fantasy ever since Sakaguchi left.
Okay, well you're opening a big old can of worms. Big old can of worms at Mario DK.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that, but it's just like you jump around this much with different gameplay styles and tone and.
I think that's part of it, and I feel like
and the game didn't stick the landing. Like, if you wanted to do a single player character action game, Final Fantasy,
Then you need to go all the
It didn't
way.
have to. It didn't have to sell like this. And every single decision they made is on Square Enix, from
Yes.
PS5 exclusivity.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Square Enix. This is Square Enix. Square Enix decided to do all of this stuff. Okay.
This is what capitalism is all about. Every decision you make is on you, right? The way PlayStation 5 is selling in Japan, it's on them. You don't blame the market. Like, that's just, it's everything. Every decision. It's all on you. It's all on Square Enix. You can't blame Sony. You can't blame the marketing deal. You can't blame, everything is their responsibility.
Exactly. Thank you. I need to address the chat for 1 second. Vinnie Mac accused me of Kirby hate once again. I'll get accused of this. No, I do not hate Kirby. I like Kirby. All right. It's just that is. Oh my god! I've explained the Kirby barrier multiple times. Right? So you have no excuse for trying to play dumb, Vinnie Mac. I think my voice is a bit high. I'm kind of peaking a little bit. Let's turn myself down. Vinnie Mac. Now Kirby is. I said Kirby is B tier. You don't listen to anything I say. I said Kirby is B tier and Pikmin is C tier. Oh my god! That's how I know you're not listening to me. Next week it'll be D tier. Next week you'll be D tier. That's who's going to be D tier. You, Vinnie Mac. Oh my gosh. Go back and rewind the VODs. I said Kirby is B tier and Pikmin is C tier. Didn't I, Mario DK? Oh, Mario DK doesn't want to be involved.
I mean, Kirby is bigger than Final Fantasy at this point.
Probably, yeah. This Final Fantasy anyway.
At least 3D Kirby, because it made that jump and they were rewarded for it. And it's like, I think last we heard it was like 5 point something million. And last we heard for Final Fantasy VII Remake was like 5-ish million. And I don't think 16 has any hope of even. I think getting to 5 million will be a challenge, and I don't think it'll get much higher than 5 million. So it's fair to say that Kirby's a bigger franchise now than Final Fantasy.
Well, the latest one, yes.
Yeah.
It's probably going to end up selling more. Yes.
Yeah.
But PC, we don't know what 16 is going to do on PC. Vinnie Mac, you roll the tape, all right? You roll the tape. You roll it back. I'm not rolling it back. I'm on a live show. Okay, we're going to come back to Final Fantasy 16 in more detail. Let's just get through a few more of these charts. Number 5, we got Minecraft at 6.7 thousand. Number 6, this is Toho.
New World.
Is that what it's called? Shin Sekai.
I
guess New World.
Chris's install base, because he has all the names in English and stuff.
Oh right, yeah. I should translate this, but normally I don't need to because you can see what they are on the screen. So.
Yeah.
So
it says Shin Sekai, which is
Shin Sekai.
World, so,
yeah, New World. Yeah. Splatoon 3 is at number 7 with 5.7 thousand. Number 8. 4%. Let's have a look. That went up. Oh yeah, some stuff went down. Splatoon 3 actually went up.
I'll back you up on the numbers side. We
nice.
can double team this.
We're gonna double team. Number 8, Nintendo Switch Sports, 5.3 thousand.
Down 14%.
So that's down quite a lot. Number 9, we have another new entry. Well, this is another SKU of a new entry. So this is the PS5 version of the Atelier Marie remake.
Yeah.
So 5,000. Sell-through, not, it's not the best. It's okay.
Yeah.
Could have been better, obviously. This is like 40 to 60%, something like that.
Yeah. They probably shipped around 10,000, I would guess.
As a PS5, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Number 10 is Raincode, which managed to hold on for a little while, with an additional 4.9 thousand. So now it's a total of 69, almost 70,000.
It's down 48%. I would say, given the reviews of the game, I think it has like a high 70 or low 80 on Metacritic. It seems like it's like a good game, but it has like some repetition and some other flaws. So I think it's reflected in the legs, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's still it's a great result. I think if they want to turn it into a franchise and continue it, they can absolutely do that.
Yeah, for this style of double A game, this
Yeah.
is pretty good because they don't normally sell crazy well. You know, especially as
Mm-hmm.
like it's basically a new IP. I know it's like from the makers of Danganronpa, but
Yeah.
it's his own IP as well, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to build a fan base gradually.
Yeah.
And they have some plans for this. They've already started they're releasing figures, and they're probably gonna end up doing an anime and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
like multimedia stuff with this
Yeah, it's a
franchise.
good result for a new IP, and it's like it shows that if you know build the game for the Switch as a platform and you market it well, then you can achieve good results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for Tokyo Games and Spike Chunsoft.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some other new releases. There was another. I don't understand. Is this like a? There's another
I feel
release of
like I could have
Bloodstains
sworn that game came out years ago.
That's what I thought.
This is, I guess,
Is this
just a
like a
really late.
a compilation?
I think it's just a late physical release. I don't know.
So this is Curse of the Moon Chronicles. Now I know there was 2 of those games. So I feel like this is like
Oh, I guess it was
a
a Curse of the Moon
bundle.
2. So I guess
Yeah.
my guess is it's both of them together.
It's a bundle.
Yeah, it's a bundle. It's a bundle of. Let me see. Curse of the Moon. Yeah, Curse of the Moon 2. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good, I would say. I mean,
Yeah.
Castlevania was never that popular in Japan, so for like a pretty late re-release of a bundle, like a 2 pixel art games, I think that's pretty strong.
Yeah, and this
Sell-
isn't
sell
this is
through-
this isn't Castlevania. To be clear to listeners, this is like a spiritual successor, let's say, to Castlevania.
So, I mean, sell-through isn't amazing, but
It's not amazing,
it's-
but it's a very late physical release of games that
Yeah.
came out years ago. So it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, is what I say. It's it's about what you'd expect for that sort of release. Now, was there a PlayStation version of this game? Probably, but it's not in this chart. So let's see what else there was. Okay, now we've got to talk about this one. This game called Exoprimal was a AAA games as a service effort from Capcom. It's a full price game. It's not free to play, which is why it is in the chart. Obviously, if it was a free to play game, it wouldn't be in the chart.
This is like an ultra bomb.
This is an ultra bomb. Now this bombed almost as much. If you remember Babylon's Fall,
Yeah.
how much that bombed. This is like that level of bomb.
Yeah.
Now, when they first revealed this game, I could have told you right off the bat when I saw it that it was going to bomb. It's like, who is asking for a game like this?
It's just like you've got characters that are like robotic with no personality that are
Generic.
you're killing like hordes of dinosaurs.
Hordes of
in, like,
dinosaurs. It makes no sense.
in a futuristic city environment. It's like
It's dumb premise.
so much like all these themes are clashing, and it's like
It just doesn't
it
work.
didn't seem like there was a story, but it's like
It's a very
Is it-
feeble story.
why did they just make like a spin-off Resident Evil game and you're just killing hordes of zombies? I feel like that would have done better.
I think they're trying to make Resident Evil live service games as well.
Like that's the thing about killing zombies. That's like everyone understands. Like, oh, they're bad. Kill the zombies, the hordes.
But the dinosaurs, it makes no sense.
You've got like dinosaurs spilling out of black hole voids in like a futuristic, like clean city environments with like Overwatch style characters.
With Overwatch, when I saw it, I was like, what they were showing was these dinosaurs were just, you're shooting at them and they're continuing to run at you. And if they're real dinosaurs, they're not just going to keep running and running and running and running at you when you're shooting them.
This should have been the Resident Evil multiplayer game that they've been trying to make for like forever, and they just can't seem to make like all the because like the different characters, they have different abilities. Like one is more tanky, one is like really fast, blah blah blah. Like you could have made like that fast one like Wesker. You could have made the tanky one like one of the Mr. X or whatever, or like the really big scary zombies. Like you could have made all the characters have their own little perks and unique play styles, and then instead of dinosaurs you should have had zombies, and I feel like that would have been way I don't know why they went with
I don't know
what
what
they
they
did.
were thinking. They were just like, I feel like a lot of these publishers, they're just so desperate to have a live service game that they must think about. This game's come out now, but think about when this would have started development and what games
Yeah.
and what influenced them to make a game like this. From when this, this would have been
Yeah.
development for like 3-4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And Overwatch was popular 4 years ago. It's less popular now. But yeah, Overwatch was probably at its height 4 years ago. So that's probably why they ended up coming up with something like this, right? But it's just nobody was asking for a game like this. Who does this appeal to?
No, like I said, I don't think I think I've heard that people say like, okay, after 5 hours the gameplay opens up more and it's actually pretty fun. And like I said, I think just the theme of the game is just I would say it's a turn off because it's just so much stuff clashing that
it's like bright and colorful.
Are we the good guys? Like,
but then the dinosaurs are like,
yeah. Why are we killing dinosaurs? Are they bad? Are they evil? Are they just helpless victims of some other enemy? Like, why are we in the future? Like, it just. Is there a story? Is there not a story? Like, do the characters even talk? Like,
I don't know. I think they talk.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I think whatever budget they put into this, they would have done better if they made like a Dino Crisis remake.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of comments here. Red Hood says they would have, also agrees with you that they would have been better off reviving Dino Crisis, which people have been begging for years, and they just won't do it.
You went through the trouble of making all these high quality dinosaur models, and it's like you put them into whatever the hell this is.
And they could have just made a Dino Crisis. I don't know. I don't know. They just, like I said, these publishers desperate to have a live. It's so difficult to have a live service hit now because the market is completely saturated with them. So most of them just straight out flop. We just heard about another one closing down. That was the what do we call it? The Bandai Namco Gundam. I thought, what the hell were they thinking making that game? They made again an Overwatch style game that came out like a year ago because they must have started making it when Overwatch was at its height, right? It was a Gundam first person shooter. It was a game to the service. I think that one was free to play though. J2 Blue, hello. I'm glad you're here. Don't worry about being late. Kika says I am here but can't chat. I'm listening to no Pikmin slander. There was no Pikmin slander at all. We are playing Pikmin music. Mario can't hear it, but you can.
This game feels like Capcom chased like a trend.
Yeah, they did.
And it seems to be well made, like as usual. Good animations and blah blah blah, like the usual Capcom touch. But
they probably spent a lot of money on this.
It just feel like they worked backwards from a concept instead of like something more universally understood, like killing zombies or hunting monsters.
You're right. That it is kind of like that, isn't it? But this Ultra Bombed is at number 16 with 3.5 thousand, a completely almost full green bar, and apparently there was a PS4 version of this game. I don't think it's next gen exclusive.
Yeah, the fact that it only charted with the PS5 version, that also shows, like I said, just how niche this game is.
Is it on here?
Only the hardcore of the hardcore were interested in this game.
Let's have a look. Yeah, there was a PS4 version. So.
Yeah.
Only 11 left in stock. Sorry?
Do we have any like Amazon sales numbers for the games, or are they too low?
No, listen, I don't know why, but when I do this on the browser, it doesn't show up for me. I have to look on the app. Otherwise it doesn't. I don't know why. I can't see it on here. On this browser. And I've tried this on Chrome. It doesn't work for me. Now, if you look at this same game on the app, it will show you the sales, but on here it doesn't, which is annoying.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to show them on stream. Yeah, and then if you look on even if I look on a different browser, sometimes I can see it here. But yeah, if I look on the app, even the games it has along the bottom, it will show them with some sales numbers. So yeah.
I think because of how badly this has bombed, I think Capcom will try to like reuse the technology for it. And like I said, my hope is that they use it for what makes sense, which is like a zombie Resident Evil Horde style multiplayer game. And not like, you don't play Resident Evil to like shoot and kill other fast moving players. You play Resident Evil to kill zombies.
Yeah, slow moving. That's the thing. These dinosaurs were fast, like really fast.
Yeah. And you could have fast moving zombies. I mean, they kind of have some of those enemies, and I think RE2, like they climb on the ceiling, and I haven't played it, but there's different kinds of zombies, and they,
Scary.
they have like triceratops and flying enemies. Like you could easily make flying monsters and creatures. And
why are these dinosaurs evil? I don't understand. Like, what? It just makes no sense.
Even like a Horde style Monster Hunter spin-off game would have done better.
Oh,
like,
they've got. You can see in the back they have one feathered dinosaur. Look.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
most of
literally
them
in
don't
Monster
have
Hunter
feathers.
Rise, in Monster Hunter Rise, there's like this the tower defense, like I forget what it's called because I have it, but it's like it's just an onslaught of like multiple monsters coming, and you just kind of have to defend and fight. It's like they easily could have made this into a Monster Hunter Resident Evil spin-off game that would have done way better.
So, but like you said, they was chasing a trend. If you even look at the character design, it's like these bright, colourful kind of Overwatch style characters. Is what this looks like to me.
They're like not even characters. They're like faceless robotic.
Yeah, they're faceless because they've put masks on. The reason they do that is they don't have to animate the face.
Which is very un-Capcom. Like Capcom is known for creating great characters. Mega Man, Ace Attorney, and.
But that's not what they wanted to do.
Well, in Monster Hunter, the characters are the monsters, and they have a lot of personality.
But that's the thing. The characters are the monsters in Monster Hunter. Yes, they are.
Yeah, and then Resident Evil, you've got the main characters, and even some of the zombies have quite a bit of personality. I just don't know who this game was for, and the theming. I have
no idea.
Yeah,
it's just a bizarre mix, like you said, and just didn't work at all. Anyway, it bombed. And then,
I think that's all I have to say on that one.
Let's move on. We've got the PS4 version of Telia Marie, number 18.
Yeah.
Everybody Want to Switch at number 19. That dropped, right? Didn't it?
It's only down 33%. So
okay.
Considering it went up last week, and it only dropped 33%, I'd say that's a pretty solid hold.
So it might hold on for a little while.
Yeah, I think it'll sell through most of its initial shipment.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You've been hanging on here at the bottom.
Especially as we approach, the Obon holiday, and then through the rest of the year. I don't think they'll make any other shipments for this game, though. I think.
No, probably
they
not.
Just
not
wanted
with
to
that.
dump. They just wanted to try to get rid of the stock they had.
Yeah, the whole way this game was kind of released and everything was a little bit strange, but
yeah, because it's so low priced. It's borderline like
it's impulse buy. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is what it is. I mean, it's like you have a quote unquote flop of this level, but then you compare it to Exoprimal, which is like the budget for these two games is
which one do you think costs more to make? Want to Switch or Exoprimal?
Yeah.
And then the only other thing we got to talk about really there was I noticed this was a Color Malice special box, and I thought this game had already come out years ago. I remember seeing it, Color Malice. This is a Otome game, but it just seems like a special edition of the same game.
Yeah.
But even that sold 2.4 thousand, a special box, and you can see it is a special box because it's 15,000 yen, so it's not like a normal release. It's like a special edition of a game that I'm pretty sure was already out.
Momotaro is flat, by the way.
Momotaro is flat.
It actually went up 1%.
So the legs on this game is astounding. Really.
So you got a lot of people that bought Zelda or whatever other Mario movie hype game, and now they're buying their next evergreen title.
And there's a follow-up. There's a new Momotaro that's launching later this year.
And this game actually just hit 4 million, which is like insane.
Wow.
That is, yeah.
So we're going to talk about that in a sec, and then the only other thing we
Clubhouse went up. Mario's 3D World is flat. Puyo Tetris. Puyo is up 32%, probably because it's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I think is worth discussing is how really good Street Fighter 6's legs have been.
Yeah, so I was just going to come to that. So we have Street Fighter 6. The PS5 version is at number 20 with 2.6 thousand. Total 47.6 thousand. And then at number 25, we have the PS4 version of Street Fighter 6. It sold an additional 2,300 for a total of 34.8 thousand. Now, it has been in the charts for a while, and the legs have been pretty good. There was some tournament or event recently in Japan that it sort of made the game so it saw an increase. So it actually went up by like 38-40% 1 week, right? And then it dropped almost that amount last week. It's like 35%.
I think it would have been nice to keep seeing the legs, because I think eventually 6 will drop out of the chart of the top 30. But I think if we had kept seeing week after week the data, I think the streams would have crossed for Street Fighter 6 and Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, I think
not that 6 lifetime to date sales will outsell 16, but in terms of just like the weekly legs,
staying in the chart, the legs.
Yeah, Street Fighter 6 right now is like, this week it sold about 5,000, and then 16 sold is like what, 8,000, 8,500. So I think in another couple weeks, like even 2-3 weeks, the streams would cross, which one, that shows how bad Street Fighter 16's legs are, and also shows Street Fighter 6, because it's such a great game and feature complete, all these modes, and it's being rewarded for that.
Yeah, so that's basically why it's hanging around. I think the PS4 version will probably drop out in a couple of weeks. But
it shows if you make a good game quality and the word of mouth is good, people will buy it. And it's like Street Fighter 6 has bounced back from PlayStation 5. Street Fighter 5 at its low point, right?
Yeah.
And you have, it's showing growth. Meanwhile, you got 16, which is continued to decline.
But here's the thing that's wild. Mario DK. This is the same damn company that made Exo Primal, right? So they make a good, Street Fighter you can play it as a traditional game, but it's more of an online game. It's got live service elements in there. You've got new characters and stuff going in, right? Yeah. So they know how to make a good live style service game, live service style game. They know how to make a good one, and then they come up with Exo Primal. What's happening?
I mean, every company is gonna have its misfires and its bombs.
I guess so.
Capcom has been on such a hot streak since, I would say, Resident Evil 7.
Oh, so they had a bomb coming. They had one coming.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. That's just the industry. You can't let these things. I would still bet on Capcom overall.
No, I agree with you. I just think it's this live service stuff that's
oh yeah,
tripping up a lot of publishers.
There's a certain way to do it, and it's like a lot of companies cut their teeth on it, and it's very, you have to go all in on it. It's like you basically have to put a whole studio's worth of people, like look at Bungie with Destiny. Like that's their whole thing is Destiny.
Yeah.
But Capcom, they're working on Dragon's Dogma, like all these other games, and Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, that they have basically.
So what it is, Mario DK, is that these publishers are just hoping they will get lucky and they will catch lightning in a bottle and they'll get a Fortnite, basically.
But I think they saw it was gonna not do well, and it seems like it was gonna be free to play with all the monetization in the game.
Yeah, I know, but it's not. That's what's wild.
They pivoted last second and they were like, okay, let's just put it on Game Pass. Let's just sell it as a regular.
Well, I don't know if the Game Pass thing was last second, but
I think it was as they saw because they revealed it like last E3, roughly that time frame. So it's been about a year since it was revealed, and I think they saw the interest was just so low that they kind of
went to Game Pass.
They knew they had a bomb on their hands, kind of like Atlas with Soul Hackers 2.
Oof! No, get sidetracked now. Atlas At the time, they said that was their third pillar. That was going to be a third pillar of their company. And they
Well, to be fair, that's what like the director of the game said, like almost immediately after the game's reveal. I think it was like a Famitsu interview or some other kind of roundtable thing. It was like, yeah, that's what you may hope, but then
right. That's what I'm saying. That was their intention, and I don't think they did promote that game. Not in the West much, but in Japan they promoted it a lot. To the point I was like, why? You realize this game was not going to sell in Japan, right? You just can't. All their promotions that they did for that game was centered on Japan. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna go into the
last thing I'll say is like, I feel more confident in Capcom if I was like an investor, because at least they have like a yearly plan. They've got yearly Resident Evil, yearly Monster Hunter. They got Dragon's Dogma. You know, they have Devil May Cry that did well. Like, but then you look at Square Enix, especially Square side. It's like all these Final Fantasy games are so different from each other, and they take so long to come out. And it's like I would say that Square, outside of Dragon Quest, which is not even fully owned by them, I don't know if Square has.
I don't think they own it at all, actually.
I don't think they have that many I don't think they have really any valuable franchises.
Not that they don't have mega valuable. Yeah, because once you go past Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, which they don't own, Kingdom Hearts, they don't own, then you're down to Nair, then you're down to Mana, then you're down to like Saga, or so most of their games are kind of smaller, right?
That's why I think if any company is going to buy, a different, like a publisher in Japan, I don't think Square Enix is a good bet.
No, because
what have they shown?
It would cost you 10 billion plus for Final Fantasy, basically. Yeah. Anyway, but let's get into these hardware. I'd like to know what you think about this, Mario DK. So we have the Switch, which is down significantly this week. So it was 64.9 thousand. So it's down week over week from 86.4 thousand. And we can see that the thing that really dropped off was the Switch Lite. Went from 20,000 last week, 20.6 thousand, to 7.3 thousand this week. The OLED was down a bit as well. That was down from 54.8 thousand to 47.5 thousand, and the regular Switch was flat.
Yeah. I think this is just the effect of Tears of the Kingdom, the Direct, the Mario movie, kind of, it's finally waning. But even with that, like it's still up from last year, right? Overall, which is really impressive. I mean, the fact, well, it also helps that it's basically the only system in Japan at this point that sells anything. So it's kind of, I don't want to say monopoly, but it's like.
Well, we're gonna get onto that, Mario DK. What's Switch is.
Yeah, Switch is the market. So
basically, at this point,
it's not like, if you put it in that context, like, it's not too surprising. There's no other competition really.
But Mario DK, I heard that it was all these tourists that were coming to Japan that were buying up all these Switches. So they just went all home at the beginning of summer. They all went home, did they? All these tourists that were buying Switches in Japan.
Yeah, but the difference is like the tie ratio for the software to hardware at least still makes sense. Like,
I know, Mario DK. I know, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know. It's just, yeah. I mean, the tourist argument is like.
I'm sure there are some tourists that were buying systems, but like what, they were buying them suddenly and now they just stopped. Like, no, I think not. It was fueled by Tears of the Kingdom and oh, sorry, I hit my mic. Sorry about that. Sorry, everyone. And the Mario movie and everything. So direct type maybe. So I think that's definitely part of it. Now, Switch is we can cover that quickly, but let's get on to talking about the PlayStation 5, right? Because that's a little bit more interesting. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to look at a few of these comments. Mousy says she's glad. I'm glad I'm missing this. Well, Mousy, is what it is. Vinnie Mac says she called Pikmin a C tier franchise. No, I did not. I said it was B tier. No, sorry. I said Pikmin was C tier. I said Kirby was B tier. I did say Pikmin was C tier. Yes. Mousy says live service Dino Crisis would still stuck, but it still suck. They would still do it. Red Hood says to Mousy, I agree live service games does suck, but something Capcom would definitely do. Remember Resident Evil 3 Resistance and RE-verse? Those were live service games minus Resistance. That would be a multiplayer mode for RE3. Yeah, Reverse isn't out yet, says Keycare. It did, or did it? I don't know if it's out or not. It took a long time to get out. And let's see, YouTube. I'm missing any YouTube comments. Or just Vinnie Max slandering me as usual. Hello J2 Blue, welcome. Vinnie Max said, a better issue of the game is that it is more of a light gun, arcadey style game. Unless the game had a banging story and phenomenal gameplay, it wasn't going to take off. Could have had the same result with a light gun attachment for Exoprimal. Well, a light gun attachment would have definitely been interesting, but it would have been like a bit of a hefty investment to make for a game that didn't look like it was gonna do very well. But then maybe they should have just made this. It probably would have been fun in the actual arcades if they'd made this, you know, as an arcade game. In the first place, they could have done it. It would have been way more fun to play with others in an arcade, rather than sitting down as like a solo experience and playing it online, which is, I guess, what is more how they designed it. And Capcom, you know, are well known for arcade games. Obviously, they began with arcade games, so yeah, they could have done this as an arcade game. But they, you know, you don't get the live service money from arcade games. So that's why they made a live service game, because they want the live service money at the end of the day. So let's talk about these PlayStation 5 sales. Mario DK. Are you there? Okay, well I think Mario DK has stepped out, so yeah, he stepped out for a sec. So never mind, I will go over these sales. So PlayStation 5 sold an additional 45.4 thousand this week. That is down slightly week over week. Last week was 48.8 thousand. Of the PlayStation 5 sold, 41.9 thousand of them were the regular disc version edition, and 3.5 thousand were the digital edition. Both of which is down slightly on last week because obviously the overall numbers is down. But as a percentage, obviously that the digital edition is, the regular edition is way more sold. Now the interesting thing is that the PlayStation 5 hasn't really dropped much from last week, and for the last the week before as well, it was around 45-ish thousand, something like that. So this could be like a baseline between 40 and 50,000 at this point, which is extremely high considering, as we discussed, the software sold is very low. Low to the point that, I talked about this a bit in the pre-show, that in order to get the software is so low and the ratio is so low, that in order to get to like the levels of like Wii U, PlayStation Vita levels, you would need like 80% digital to be at those levels of what those games were selling physical only. It's at that point now. And no, I do not believe that the PlayStation 5 is like 80% digital in Japan. There are some people that believe that for whatever reason. No, it's not that crazy high. It probably has a normal digital rate of around 30%. We don't know for 100% certain because there just isn't enough data. There's different games that we can point to, but it doesn't give the whole picture, and certainly retailers in Japan don't seem to think it's a digital platform because of all the shelves and giant ass PlayStation sections there are in the stores in Japan. Like, why are they selling all those games? Who are they selling those games to? Or who do they think they're selling those games to? I don't know. But then also, the sales have dropped off so sharply that some retailers may have been caught off guard. You know, I think some publishers were caught off guard in the sense that I don't think they thought that that PlayStation was gonna. I don't think they thought for 1 second that PlayStation was gonna crash this hard in Japan like this. They might have thought the sales gone down a little bit. I don't think they thought. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this coming. What do you think, Mario DK? Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I think that I don't really buy that it was a surprise, because there's been no software thus far that would be attractive to the Japanese market.
But don't Mario DK, you're forgetting something. The Final Fantasy 16 was the test. That was the test. That was the big test. That was meant to show that was the software for Japan. You're forgetting about that, Mario DK. You need to remember that. That's what everyone must have been saying for 2 years.
Of course, the extremely strong Final Fantasy 16 sales.
We'll get to that.
It's just, you don't get to, what is it in British, like faff around? Is that...
Yeah, faff around. It means like messing around or
yeah, you don't get to faff around with your console for 2.5 years and then expect it to be revitalized with one single player divisive game. You know,
yeah, that ended up being a little bit.
It doesn't work like that. It's never worked like that for any console.
No.
What are people gonna play in between? What are people supposed to have been playing up until now? If you weren't interested in like ultra hardcore, action games and like Elden Ring or Resident Evil or another Yakuza game, like
well, even those
these
all
titles.
Dropping. The only one that really like bucked the trend was Elden Ring.
And even that wasn't like as much of a success compared to other regions.
Compared to no way. It was in the charts for multiple weeks in Japan, but it was in the charts from. I don't think it even dropped out. It's been in the charts for months in the West. Yeah. Months. I think it's still there, isn't it? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I remember it being there like until
it's
recently.
Still pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 5 hardware and software still don't add up, really make sense. The PlayStation 5 being fairly high considering the software is not really selling, but as I was saying before, like in order for the software to make sense, it'd have to be like 80% digital. It'd have to be like 80% digital. Which I do not believe that the PlayStation is 80% digital in Japan.
And the thing is that the hardware sales are pretty much irrelevant, because what people make money off of and what matters in this industry are the video games and the software themselves. So even if we didn't have any hardware, we could judge the health, and we can judge the health of the PlayStation 5 ecosystem in Japan.
Oh, but you forgot Mario DK. You're forgetting. We had to wait to Final Fantasy 16. That was the test. That was the big test. Oh no! Wait, it came out. It came out. So what was the results of the test, Mario DK?
It did come out. I
yes.
hadn't realized. I would have thought it would have had an actual impact.
Yeah. Not so much. Not long term.
Yeah.
So so there were some people who were saying that Final Fantasy 16, we didn't know, you can't really say stuff about the health of the PlayStation ecosystem in Japan until Final Fantasy 16 comes out, and that was supposed to be the test, and a lot of those people gone quiet. Didn't tell us whether the test was passed. What's the results of the test? From where I am and what I'm looking at. Final Fantasy 16 underperformed for a Final Fantasy game in Japan.
I mean, personally, I don't believe in like under or overperforming.
Oh, you don't? Why is that?
I just think games perform what the market, they perform what they perform, and the only thing that really matters is the trend, or how it compares to the last release and the overall.
That's what I mean. Compared to the last 2 releases, it underperformed to those.
Yeah. But even then, it's just like you could have seen this coming from a mile away with the tone of the game, and just you could see every trailer was basically the same. It was just like action and big boss fights, and it was like.
So let's get on to now we do our the PlayStation 4 sales and Xbox sales. They're not very interesting. They're about the same. PlayStation 4 dropped slightly from last week. Last week it was 3,000. This week it's 1,000. Xbox is at the same. It's 800 Xboxes.
Yeah.
3DS. I don't know why they're still tracking 3DS. It's beyond me. But anyway, it sold 30. How are Famitsu tracking these 30 3DSs? Tell me, Famitsu. Tell me, someone from Famitsu. Tell me how and why you're tracking 33 3DSs sold in a week. I need to know where are these 3DSs coming from. How do you know they're being sold? Who's buying them? In 2023, who's buying 3DSs? Brand new 3DSs. Anyway, let's talk about. Oh no, you wanted to talk about your tie ratio.
Data.
Yeah, let's talk about your data first, and then we'll talk about Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about data now. MarioDK has made some amazing charts, which if you are watching on the stream or you're watching the VOD, you'll be able to see it on the screen. I've put them in full screen here. Or as full screen as I can get them, basically. We can zoom in a bit if necessary. But there's two different charts here. Which one would you like me to look at first?
The other one, the more chaotic one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
So talk us through this chart and what data you used and what was your methodology and exactly what we're looking at here.
So the long and short of it is, a console is ultimately determined like how successful it is based on the amount of software it sells. And for most consoles in history, it's been pretty easy because they haven't had massive issues of being sent overseas or scalping to the extent with PS5. So it was very strange to see PS5 hardware numbers being so high, yet the software being extremely low, to the point where there would be weeks where there would be 0 PS5 software titles in the top 30, like just week after week. I mean, you can see if you look like the weeks since launch from like 4 to about 16, it was just a flat 0.
Oh yeah, okay, I can see what you mean. Right, so this light blue line here is the PlayStation 5. And no, you're right, so it kind of launched, so and then something came out on week 4 and made it go up, and then it was just nothing in the chart for weeks. Yeah.
And so to be clear about the data, this is purely PS5 top 30 physical, games, and I add up all the software in the top 30, and that was made a lot easier by thanks to Niche Barrier, because before, at first I was doing it by hand, just manually adding up everything.
No, gosh.
But on Niche Barrier, if you kind of scroll down a bit on the weekly sales, it shows like the total software sales.
Yes, it does. I love Niche Barrier.
For each platform. So that was a huge lifesaver. It made everything so much easier. So I just made like a huge Google Drive worksheet with just I would take the weekly total software sales, top 30 each week since launch, and I would divide it by the PS5 disc version, and that would tell me that would tell me the overall tie ratio, and that's different from the attach rate, which is more for like single titles. What's the attach rate of this game to this console? But this is just a tie ratio, as in, like, for any given amount of hardware sold, how many of those people are buying games, which is what matters at the end of the day.
Okay, right? That makes sense. So this is the disc version only. We weren't including the digital version of the PlayStation 5, and then the tie ratio, just comparing it to the actual software that's sold week to week.
Yeah. And what it should be is you would expect at least minimum of about 1, right? If you look on the left, the ratio, it says attach rate, but that was before I updated the title. But you want at least 1. You would expect for a physical console that somebody comes in, they buy a console, they're gonna buy at least 1 game.
Right.
But if you look at most of PS5's tie ratio, it is frequently below 1. It'll peak every now and then with the release of a game.
Okay, so I see what you're saying here. On the left hand side of the chart, there's the 1 there, which would be the tie ratio.
It's that first line across the whole graph.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe it'll be bumpy in the beginning because it was pretty badly scalped, but like even after you'll see these big peaks, it'll come crashing back down, and that's just another sign of an unhealthy console. Like, you don't want these wild swings from like up to 5, where you're selling like 5 times the amount of software per week compared to your hardware. Because what that really tells you is you're selling a lot of software, but the hardware isn't really moving. You know, you don't.
I mean the other
It's
way.
like you don't want it to be too low, but you also don't want it to be too high. Because if you look at the red, right, the switch, it's kind of more like in the center, right? There's a couple times where it gets below 1 or close to 1, that like in the very beginning. If you look at the red, there's like around week 7, but that could be explained by like maybe just shortages, because it was kind of hard to find for a bit. But then you've got your peaks with each big game that'll come out, but it kind of stays roughly between like 1 and at most 7, but usually it kind of bounces between like let me see, I have it over here, but it's like it'll bounce between like 1 and 6, and if you kind of average that out, it's about like a 3 attach rate. So the reason I compared them is because I was like, okay, what does a normal healthy console's tie ratio look like? So I did this, and this is weeks since launch, so there's going to be some seasonality, because PS5 came out holiday, but actually PS4 and Switch came kind of close to each other. But the point isn't that PS4 had a higher attach rate one week and or Switch was lower one week. The point is like the overall trend. And so like I said, I took Switch because it was a normal console with normal tie ratio, and then I went back to PS4 because it was the last console before PS5, and it was moderately. I mean, it was a drop from PS3, but I just wanted it to compare it to the last system.
Right.
And you can see with PS4, it also has some pretty low like valleys, right, where it dips pretty low at times. But the thing with PS5 that's so striking is that not only are the valleys lower than the PS4's, but it hasn't even had any peaks as high as PS4.
You're right.
So
you're right. It hasn't. Looking at this chart, the light blue for people watching, the light blue is a PS5 disc ratio, and the dark blue is a PS4. And you can see the PS4 is way, way, way more healthy.
And it's still a very swingy console, the PS4. Because there would be weeks where software would come out but the hardware was basically flat or just barely up a bit, which again is not healthy because you've got games coming out, but they're not system sellers. So it's mostly just software that comes out and sells to a pre-established base. Whereas with Switch, you might get a big game and it'll sell a lot, but because it was a system seller, that tie ratio wasn't like too high. It wasn't like an unhealthy it wasn't just an unhealthy like title that came out and everybody rushed it. They bought it first week and then it fell off. It was like, people bought it, it had good legs, and people continued to buy the hardware in addition to the software. So
what is striking here, my just quick observation, is seeing this like in front of you in this type of graph form is really like eye-opening, because you can actually see here where the PlayStation 5, where it's completely flat at the bottom, that's where it had no games in the chart, right? There was no games. Yeah. And even really late, like we're still seeing it here in the middle of its life so far, and even here, all the way up into week 33. Yeah. No games, or one game or something. Look how low this is still. Compared that to the PlayStation 4, you can see it has a much higher tie ratio and way, way higher peaks. Obviously, this is with different games we're releasing, and valleys are not. The PS4 did not drop down to 0 after this late.
About week 88. If you look at week 88, after that point, it kind of found like a pretty healthy baseline. Yeah. It got down to 1, but after that, it never really dipped down below 1.
It was not going. It's not. The PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 are very, very different, as we can see in this chart. The PlayStation 4 was a much, much healthier console and I think that is this the only week here, at week 12, something like that, where it was down to nothing in the chart for the PlayStation 4. All for the rest of its, what's documented on this chart anyway, was the first couple of years. It didn't go down to 0.
And you would expect that as time goes on, with the shortages being over, that PS5 would start to improve, and it kind of has. If you look like, I guess, I mean, even since I would say maybe week 79 or around there, it'll hit 0, but it won't hit 0 for as long.
Yeah.
Like
That's
77,
true.
78.
But it shouldn't be hitting 0 at all. That's the thing that's
Yeah, it
wild.
really shouldn't. But then you kind of move on. I think around 109, week 109, since launch, there's always something in the charts, so it's a bit better.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hitting 1 more often. But
Yeah.
even if you look all the way at the very end of the chart, this is all up to date with PS5.
So this is Final Fantasy 16 right here, then, I guess, at the end.
No, that's 130.
Yeah,
or so.
what,
That's
here,
yeah,
138. That's Final Fantasy 16.
yeah, and even that peak, which was supposedly supposed to be this ultimate test,
It's lower than. Hang on, what's this one here? Is this Elden Ring in week 60 something? 67, 69?
that sounds about right, because you can tell it hasn't the tie ratio doesn't drop off too much. I mean, it still drops off quite a bit, but it takes a bit longer to get down to 0.
So even then, so Elden Ring had a higher peak than, a higher tie ratio than Final Fantasy 16. How's that possible?
Well, that just shows how weak Final Fantasy 16 is.
There was more consoles now.
Yeah.
Than there was a year ago.
Yeah.
So how is the tie ratio lower?
Well, this is not like the total tie ratio. It's like every week you just take like the most recent week, and you just
okay. So you're just taking the consoles for that week.
Each individual week's tie ratio. So you take however
I see
many.
what you mean.
Yeah, it's not like a total.
No, it's not cumulative. Okay, but even then they shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, you should expect it. A healthy console, and even any console, even if it's bad, should have a 1 minimum of a tie ratio.
It should look more like the PS4.
At least PS4.
It doesn't even look like that.
But the thing is, we know that so many PS5s have shown up in other countries. So if you want to jump to the other graph that I sent you.
Yeah, this one.
So this is it's called like a moving average. So because the weekly tie ratios can jump around so much with different titles, what you do is you take like a longer period of data and you average them out, and you use that as that data point. So you can see that the data only starts at like 50.
Yeah, why is that?
Around 50. So it's a 50 period moving average. So you take like basically 50 is pretty common in like stock situations, like a 50-day moving average, because it kind of is more consistent, and it's more resistant to like fluctuations and like shortages and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So for the very first data point, you just take a whole 50 weeks worth of data, and then you use that as your first point. And then each week of data that comes out, you add the new week, and you drop 1 week from before. So you're kind of tracking the moving average. You're seeing how much does it change, right, with over time.
Oh, okay, I understand now. Yeah.
So even if something is like a super high point or like an outlier, over time it'll kind of fall back to its its trend. So if you look at both Switch and PS4,
right,
you see they kind of hover around like 3.
Yeah,
If you kind of scroll to the left, so that if people want to see, but so that's what I can determine is about what is a healthy attach rate. Overall, it might be kind of low in the beginning because of shortages and all that kind of stuff, but over time it'll kind of fluctuate around 3, and that fluctuation is, my guess, is mostly just different holidays and different titles coming out, right? So that shows you, even with PS4 being as unhealthy and how swingy it was still had like a three-ish attach rate.
I mean, it's
and
like,
it kind of goes,
it's not that far from Switch. Like it's a bit,
Yeah.
It's not. It's
and it kind of goes up towards the end just because. And it's actually it's like an unhealthy sign. It's not good, because what that says is games are coming out, selling a lot. Like, I don't know, Persona 6 or whatever else was coming out 2016, but it wasn't moving that much hardware.
Persona 5.
So if you compare it to Switch, which that comparison helps because we have a normal console to compare it to, you really want it to be not too much higher than 3.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if we have a console to compare it to, right, in recent history, which is why when you look at PS5,
Yeah.
it is so far below, and
crazy far below.
It can't even hit 1. Like if you look at it, it starts at like 0.5, like the average, and some games come out and it hits a bit higher, but even at best it's like floating barely around 1.
So this moving average for that you have tracked here means this first line here is 1, and it really does look like it's not really. I mean, it kind of hits it here at one point, but it's like it should be up where the other two are, basically in that sort of area, and it's so. I mean, it's like significantly below. So it's not like, we have it just a few years ago, like literally a handful of years ago, when the PlayStation 4 was able to have this type of average tie ratio, just a few years ago. So and it's relatively stable, right? Or relatively like it's not crazy bad. It's not crazy bad. It could have been better, but it's not like the PS5. The PS4 and the PS5 look very different.
So what that Nintendo Switch and PS4 comparison helps with is like it puts into perspective that despite the PS4 being another big decline, right, from PS3, which was a big decline from PS2, even then it seems like there's a pretty standard tie ratio, right? It's about 3 in general.
Yeah.
But the only way, at least to me, this is just my theory, the only way that the PS5's tie ratio makes sense, right, is if the real install base is about a third, or at best half of what it is. Now we can say that because we know we have photo proof. We've got a lot of different comments that a lot of these are being sent overseas. Now it doesn't really matter why they're being sent overseas, but I mean, we know why. It's because Japanese people don't care about the software on the PS5, so they're not buying PS5s.
So my thoughts of this. So I did make a very long thread of all different photos and stuff I gathered. I think I made it end of last year, beginning of this. It was beginning of this year, I think. And yeah, so basically, people was saying to me, it's not getting scalped. What are you talking about? And I'm like, I really think this is happening, like not just a little bit, but a lot. So my position is that this was happening, especially back, during the actual worldwide semiconductor shortage. It was way more pronounced then, right? Because people could get people were making bank with these PlayStation 5, like absolute bank, and they had filling up their houses, warehouses, empty offices, and everything with these PlayStation 5, and literally just shipping them off. So that did happen. To what extent or how many, we actually don't know. We can kind of say, oh, it might be this much. There's no way that we will ever actually know the actual number. Now, my position is, Mary DK, is that I think that did happen to a large extent. I don't think that's the only reason that PlayStation 5 software is this low. My own personal feelings is that I feel like it exacerbated something that was already happening, which was the decline of PlayStation in Japan. It already happened before the PlayStation 5 was coming out. We discussed from PlayStation 2, PlayStation 4. It's already was in decline. I think what happened was with the console and also Sony Interactive Entertainment, changing over time from in 2016, didn't they still have when did they move to the US? The headquarters to the US? Was it 2016?
It might have been like 2015, sometime in the late 2010s.
Okay,
mid to late 2010s.
We're talking about around that time, before the PlayStation 5 had even come out, that they were changing as a company and changing the direction, and they would have been developing the PlayStation 5 at that time with the worldwide or Western audience in mind. Now, to be clear, they have been very successful with that. The PlayStation 5 is extremely successful worldwide. Unfortunately, what's happened is that that's at the detriment of the Japanese market, which is the second biggest single country console market in the world behind the US, right? It's a single country market. So it's not as big as the whole of Europe, obviously, but it's for such a tiny little country as well, in terms of population, is way below the US. But they consume a lot of video games there. So it's been at the detriment of that market, and there's been a number of different things that Sony has done and the direction they've moved towards that I think has just exacerbated this problem, from shutting down Japan studio, moving their headquarters, changing the button layout with their weird strict policies about certain types of Japanese games, with their like having they need in that some developers that were submitting to get their games onto the console had to, that in Japan they had to do that in English, and just a number of things to like the actual games they're making that were basically just targeted. And those games, to be clear, like I said, those games have been very, very successful, right? Just not in Japan. Those games are not big sellers in Japan. The one that was the biggest seller was Ghost of Tsushima, which was a game that's set in Japan and like historical. They did a lot of research for this game, and was just like a happy accident, basically, that it also sold well in Japan because it was set in Japan. They could have made that exact same game with the exact same care to detail and everything, but maybe they base it on ancient South America, the Maya culture or something. Maybe they based it on that. It wouldn't have sold the same in Japan. It's because it was set in Japan. That's why it sold. And they did put a lot of care and attention to detail in this game, where it's it's not 100% historically accurate, but there's a lot of things in there that do line up with actual history that happened with the Mongol invasion of Japan, right? So a number of things Sony has done. Then you have other things that maybe it was not that Sony didn't do, which was one of the things is the decline of Final Fantasy in Japan. Obviously, that's not to do with Sony. That's Square Enix, and we were just talking about that. And Square Enix changing up Final Fantasy so many times, to the point where it's been inconsistent and has not grown, has even stagnated, and even kind of declined a bit as a franchise compared to what it used to be. This franchise that could sell 10 million back on the PS1, right? When the market was way, way, way smaller, right? That was huge back then, right? It's still big now, but that would be the equivalent of selling like 30 million now, something like that. Final Fantasy, by all means, should be like a 20 million selling franchise, really, with the age of the franchise, how long it's been around, how storied it is. It should, by this point, it shouldn't be stagnating, like, just about limping over to 10 million. We're over, what was it, 7 years or something with tons and tons and tons and tons of discounts, like on fire sale, then it gets to 10 million. They should be selling these at closer to higher price for a longer period, and it should be getting to like 15-20 million. This is how much I think that Final Fantasy should be selling. But then so that was one of the big sellers in Japan. That's gone down. It's kind of made everything go down. And the other thing is that Sony, the marketing deals they've chose to make, the games that they've chose to promote and market, and they are definitely marketing to an audience who wants that cinematic experience on the sofa on a large TV, right? And so every single state of play that we've seen since state of plays have existed, right, which predates the PS5, and the showcases they play, they didn't have that style of presentation until, I mean, you know what happened when they stopped going to E3 and all that stuff changed and everything. But anyway, eventually they had their own digital presentations, right? So the state of play and the showcases, right, which is the kind of the bigger one, right? With all of those showcases, occasionally they show AA games, but more it will be like big, high profile AAA games and select kind of prestige indie titles, I'd kind of call them, like more prestige indie titles that they want to promote. And they're very good at picking those indie titles, and they've been pretty successful. But a lot of the stuff in the middle, the AA stuff, just hasn't been shown to date. Like off the top of my head, right? And I've watched every single state of play and showcase. I don't think there's been a single like turn-based JRPG ever shown at any one of those at all, right? And I've talked about this before. The closest would be like Dio Field Chronicle, which wasn't turn-based. It was more like a real-time strategy game. That's the closest, right? And when it comes to AA games, kind of something closer would be like when they had another Square Enix game, which was what was it called again? Valkyrie Elysium. Is it Valkyrie Elysium?
Yeah.
What was it called again? Yeah. So that was a double, and that game bombed again. That Square Enix, and those stupid decisions they made with that. I don't know why they did that with that franchise. But yeah, in that time, like, and I'm thinking, looking back, have they ever showed like an Atelier game at any of those state of plays, or not that I can think of? Have they ever showed a single Falcom game at any of those things? Have they ever shown any of those? Not that I can think of at the top of my head. I'm just naming like kind of AA games. That have they even shown an Atlas game at any one of those state of plays or showcases?
I don't think so.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I cannot think of any Atlas game that they've ever shown at one of those. I could be wrong, but off the top of my head, I don't feel like they have. This is what I'm talking about. None of that. If you're not promoting those style of games at your events where your fans are going to be watching, then you're going to attract people that are not necessarily interested in the games you're showing, not the games you're not showing, right? So then you saw a gradual migration of the audience that likes AA JRPGs, and a lot of them have gone to Switch. Some have gone to PC as well. But you ended up with a lot on Switch because Switch has got so many of those style of games. Now, to be clear, all those games we're talking about and named, they still all release on PlayStation, right? There's not been any dearth of releases. They're not getting any less releases. They're all still releasing on PlayStation. You don't need to panic. Everything's fine. They're all still releasing on PlayStation. They're just overall just selling less is what seems to be happening. And this is really markedly in Japan. But I think this is also happening worldwide as well, which is why you're seeing some AA games not doing as if they're not doing well as PlayStation. Overall, they're not going to do as well because PlayStation is such a big platform, right? What are your thoughts, Maridike?
I think you ultimately just have to pick the poison, because there is no universe in which the PlayStation 5 software sales look good. You either accept that the tie ratio is just historically awful, or you accept that most of these PlayStation 5s have been sent outside of the country. Either way, the core reason for those is the software is not appealing, so that people are not buying and using PlayStation 5s in Japan.
So what I'd like to ask you this is, Mario DK, you said the software is not appealing. Now, as we kind of joked about Final Fantasy 16 being there, because people did say that for like months, if not a year plus, was saying you go away from Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16, that's going to change. It's going to tell. That was happening, right? People that haven't been around on the sales forums and everything, that was a thing that was happening. Now, I did hear that there's not games that appeal. But like I said, every single one of these very, very, very few games that do not release on PlayStation. The only games that are really not releasing there are the very small, like otome games that have small and dedicated audience. There's a certain style of game. Almost everything else releases on PlayStation. All those games are on PlayStation, right? And also, we're talking about Japan. Also, PlayStation gets a lot of games that don't release on Switch, and therefore in Japan they are like de facto exclusives. They're perceived as being exclusive to the PlayStation, even if they are on Xbox, because most people don't even know Xbox exists in Japan. It's such a tiny market. Most people don't have gaming PCs. When you walk around, you go into the store, you go into the store and you see the poster for the game. It's just PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. You look at the shelves, there's games on the shelf, but they're not on the Switch side. People don't go and do, let me go and research this game and see if it was on other platforms. They just see it on the shelf, what's the PlayStation game, right? So they've gotten a lot of games that Switch didn't get. Elden Ring, they got today, Hogwarts Legacy. Obviously, they say there's going to be a Switch version. We have to wait and see about that. Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil, Street Fighter. I could go on and on. All sorts of games. Games that appeal in Japan, games that are Japanese as well, right? PlayStation gets all of them. So what is the problem, Mario DK?
I disagree with that, because I think to have a successful console, you need like four facets of your software ecosystem. You need quality, you need quantity, you need variety, and you need consistency. Now PS5 does get quality games, that's true, but it doesn't have a lot of variety. It doesn't have a game like Momotaro. It doesn't have really high quality life sims like Animal Crossing. It doesn't have a really good kart racer. It doesn't have even some baseball games. I think one year they did an exclusive baseball game, like Konami did.
Or one of those pro, what do they call it again? Power Pro or something?
Yeah, Power Pro. It was exclusive to Switch. So it doesn't really have a lot of variety. It's got a lot of big, mature, hardcore titles. And even if it does get a lot of those other titles, they're not really advertised that much.
Well, so to play devil's advocate, and I'm playing devil's advocate, we're having a discussion here, obviously. PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4 got that Shin-Chan game, right? That apparently people on PlayStation 4 were begging for and then bombed. They got those Doraemon Story of Seasons games. Right, they got the Doraemon Story of Seasons games. They got Team Crash Racing or whatever it is. So they've got some of those games, Mario DK. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but the problem is they exist on Switch as well.
Right.
And if you're thinking of little Haruto or Haruko, 10-year-old, right? Do they pick the system with Splatoon and Shin-Chan? My summer vacation game.
My summer vacation,
Or do you pick the system that has the summer vacation game but doesn't have Splatoon 3, and it has all these franchises with games you've never heard of, or they don't come out very often.
The Last of Us. Yeah, that's what little Haru and Haruto play.
Yeah.
The Last of Us.
So it doesn't matter that they're coming out on PlayStation, because they're also coming out on Switch, which also has more attractive titles that have more variety. And the other thing that I brought up is consistency, right?
Yes.
PS4 has these long, big droughts, right? What are people supposed to play between Final Fantasy 16 and Armored Core 6, which is also a niche title? I mean, how many?
What are you talking about? They're supposed to play Exoprimal and Atelier Marie remake. That's what they're playing.
Yeah. I'm not sure too many people are playing those games.
Maybe not.
But let's say Armored Core 6 comes out. You got another single player, action game or whatever that's very core focused. That's not gonna have the.
It's literally got core in the name. Literally.
Yeah.
Guess who has headphones? Mousy, did you borrow or steal those headphones? I need to know.
But what are people supposed to play between Armored Core 6 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth?
I just told you.
I've asked this question multiple times, week after week on Install Base.
Yes.
Nobody can come up with an answer because there is nothing. There's nothing after Armored Core 6.
Until Rebirth.
Yeah.
Which is
So
early,
you have nothing for the
2024.
for like a whole half year, and then you have basically nothing in the holiday season, right? You've got some Dragon Quest game. But
Dragon Quest
even
Adventure of
Monsters
Die, or whatever it's called.
even Monsters 3 is exclusive to Switch. So
That
people say like
is.
de facto exclusive. I mean, you've got the biggest party game sequel to Momotaro coming out only on Switch. You've got
But
Dragon
that
Quest
again,
Monsters 3.
that is a de facto exclusive. Konami, they could have put that on. People were stopping them putting them on PlayStation. As far as I know, there's no exclusivity deal with Nintendo for Momotaro. They just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, that's Sony's fault.
Yeah, why don't they want to put that on? There's nothing stopping them putting that on. As far as I know, the Dragon Quest Monsters game, I don't know if there's some sort of exclusivity deal there. There might be. It wasn't revealed at. Was it revealed at a direct? It wasn't. It was revealed in like a Monster Hunter event.
Momotaro?
No, the
Momotaro?
Dragon Quest Monsters.
It was like teased in for the anniversary. They had some small announcements. It was like there's a new Dragon Quest Monsters in development. It was like just some text on the screen, but the full reveal was in the most recent Nintendo Direct.
Oh, you're right. It wasn't the Direct. No, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. It wasn't the Direct. I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe there's some, or at least some sort of marketing deal or something. Nintendo or Square Enix to kind of make these deals for these different Dragon Quest games or whatever. But as far as I know, that Momotaro game, I don't think there's any. That is just what Konami decided to do. Hey, they could put that on PlayStation if they want. They could still put it on PlayStation, but they haven't done it. Even though for that game, if you see what that game looks like, it's literally a board game. That is what it looks like. It's a board game. It probably cost them a bag of peanuts and 100 yen to make it.
Yeah.
They must have made so much money from that because they're charging full price for that game. They must have made so much goddamn money, and they haven't even released it outside of Japan.
Just imagine in real life, right? Imagine if you could only eat at like 3 Michelin star, high quality, expensive restaurants, and you had like no other options, right? You need the junk food, you need the local the local restaurants, you need the chains, you need everything in between. You need the high quality movies, the blockbusters, you need the TV shows, you need the streaming, you need everything in between. You need a variety, you need consistency, you need
Yes.
You need variety, you need, like I said, you need those quality, quantity, variety, and consistency. So you can't have these huge gaps and droughts. I mean, these are like Wii U level droughts, if not worse.
Right. So that's the problem. You might have like these big releases, but then in between it you have this stuff that's released in multi-platform, but if that stuff is also on Switch, you have a market that's going to opt to buy that on Switch. It basically is what's happening. And for the games that don't release on Switch, they just start to be ignored. There's like I've kind of seen this kind of, oh, it's not on Switch. Oh well, I just won't get it. I'm not getting that.
Yeah.
Even if it's something that initially looked appealing, there's like, oh well, just won't get it. And even games that people assumed that it would be a Switch. You do brought up Soul Hackers 2 at one point. There were people in Japan that assumed that game was going to be on Switch. They just, it was going to be on Switch. It wasn't. And it was like, oh well, just won't get it. And then we saw what the sales of that game was.
Like, imagine if all Switch had was like Fire Emblem games and Metroid games and
Oh no, you're gonna get Fire Emblem and Metroid fans coming after you now.
No, but it's like you look at the legs of those games; they fall out after a while. But
yeah, because they're not that.
They're
popular.
single player. They're pretty linear, and then you play them, and then everybody has like roughly the same experience. And there's not multiplayer, so they just kind of fall out of the charts. Except Breath of the Wild, which is like. But it's so
that's a whole different.
It's so open, and everyone has their own journey, and you can share, and you can talk about and discuss.
Yeah, that's its own thing. So I want to put this question to you, Maro DK, when we was talking about these games and what appeals and everything. And I'm sure I know the answer to this. I'd like you to expand on this once I quickly go and grab myself a drink. Do you feel that the fact, because you was talking about where's the kart racing game or all these different types of games for on the PlayStation, and there are some games that are analogous to it, and none of those games are first-party games promoted by Sony, made to appeal to not just the Japanese market but also a worldwide market. Is the fact that Sony does not make any games like that, don't particularly market many games like that in, like I said, their state of plays and promote. When I say promote them, I don't mean like what they tweet out different games. They pretty much every game gets a tweet on the you know, Sony socials or you know, Nintendo, any whichever one. They all get tweets out. No, I'm not talking about tweets and uploads to their YouTube channels. I'm talking about promotion in their events. The ones that they're clearly in their events, they have some sort of marketing deal or something going on for. Is the fact that Sony does not make those games themselves part of it, and I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, it's just what they choose to promote, and at the end of the day, everything falls back on Sony. It's just, I mean, that's what capitalism is about, you know, regardless of how much, you know, people may hate late stage capitalism. At the end of the day, it's your product that you're putting out there, so you're responsible for the performance entirely. You know, it's every decision you make, from platforms to development to advertising, content theming, promotion, it all comes back to Sony. And back in the PS1, PS2 days, they had a lot more variety. They had Japan Studio making games like, you know, Patapon. You had trying to think, they were making their own RPGs. They were making like Parappa the Rapper and Wipeout. You know, they just had so much more variety, and there was more quirky titles. Everything wasn't just like God of War, Last of Us, linear action style games. You had, you know, it showed where priorities were, and that they cared about that variety, right? The variety is, like I said, it's important to bringing a wide consumer base, because if you look at the PlayStation audience in Japan, like, what are they buying? What's charting? It's these big releases, but it's nothing else. So Nintendo from the beginning has always been about everybody, right? I mean, their first console they put on the market was called the family computer. I mean, family was literally in the name. So they made all kinds of games, from like kind of knockoff sports games to tabletop games to action games like Mario. You had adventure games like Zelda. You had Mario Kart. You had, you know, and a lot of these games have multiplayer too. So kind of helps with the legs, and it helps, you know, self-promote the games to a wider audience. But recently, Sony's just been focused all on single-player games, and they kind of moved everything to the West, and it's their fault for abandoning the Japanese market. I mean, you can abandon the Vita, sure, but you didn't have to shut down Japan Studio. You know, you didn't have to downsize all these studios, right? I mean, you've got, I think, Asobi Studio, but it's like, when was the last game they made? I mean, they released a game on PSVR, and then they did kind of like a pack-in game. What was it? It was some Astrobot game, but again, it was like a short little tiny experience. And they used to, Japan Studio used to put out multiple games, like sometimes even in a year. So you would have something to fill in the gaps, things that were unique, right? Because the thing is that none of these games exist in a vacuum. You know, you can have your Crash Team Racing, but these titles, yeah, they are variety, but they're competing against the quality of Nintendo. You know, it's not the same just because you have these Crash Team Racings and other things.
It's not Crash Team Racing. It's not good enough.
When they're competing against what Nintendo's putting out, so that's what the market is. It's, you know, it's a cutthroat market.
You can kiss goodbye to those Crash games anyway. They ain't gonna be on.
Yeah, and the West is more into like Call of Duty and other, you know, all these first person.
Well, even that doesn't sell well in Japan anymore. Call of Duty.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
really...
even on PS4 they were selling, but they weren't moving that much hardware.
Well, there
So
was
if you
back
look at-
then, like back then, but like now, if you see what
Yeah.
a Call of Duty is selling, it's not selling very much in Japan anymore.
Yeah, but well, that's the thing is like you look at the tie ratio, right? And the PS4 is super swingy. It'll have massive peaks because you had games like Destiny and these Ubisoft and Call of Duty games coming out, but they weren't moving that much hardware. So they were just appealing to a hardcore like PlayStation fan base. I don't want to say fanboys, but it was like whoever was showing up at launch or in the first year or two when there was barely any PS4 games. Um, they just, even for how well they sold, they didn't really move the needle in terms of hardware.
Now, how much longer do we have you for, Mario DK?
I can stick around like another 15 minutes.
Okay, so we will get on to the Square Enix statement since you have to go in about 15 minutes. I'm just going to quickly read out a couple of these comments. Jaronimo, welcome. Says Persona 6 with a sticky out tongue emoji. Now, because at one time Mario DK, you didn't realise you did this, but you said Persona 6 when you meant Persona 5. So I think that's why they're saying that. J. Arthur, also, welcome. Xbox is the new home of Persona. Well, yeah, we'll see about that. Hey, it's RJH says, I think the reason PlayStation systems aren't doing as hot as the Switch is because Sony has kind of let the Japanese audience go. Heck, there are certain games on PS5 that flopped without Switch. Yes. They continue. There are many Sega/Atlas, Namco and Capcom games. People asking where the heck are the Switch versions, indeed. And so, what you named there, particularly Sega and Atlas and Namco, are the main culprits of not releasing their games on Switch just because they don't want to. It's the reason. It's the main reason. People are like, well, they can't do this and they can't do this hardware and and it's no. The reason is they do not want to and they do not feel pressed to do it. Really.
You can't control third parties or other people. You can only control what yourself and what you put out and what you promote. And the truth is, after the Vita flopped and they focused on the PS4, they just stopped caring about Japan.
Yeah. So.
And the sales reflect that. They don't care about Japan. Okay, Japan doesn't care about PlayStation.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And Capcom arguably have made a bit more of an effort than some other Japanese companies, but even they are lacking a little bit. I feel they could do a bit better. Vinnie Mac says, did PlayStation taste change? Do you mean PlayStation gamers? Vinnie Mac? Vinnie Mac continues, no real reason to have high power 60 frame 64K device and putting out single A and double A content. It's good for the portfolio, but the audience is looking for that style of content. Yeah, and I think they've cultivated an audience that is looking for higher graphics and stuff like that. I've said this before, if you go back and look at PS1 and PS2 games, that era of games, the gap between games wasn't as big as it is now, and even stuff that was trying to be realistic just wasn't able to look realistic because of the technology that was available back then. So as time's gone on, that gap has got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger between a lower budget game and a more higher budget game, and you need a certain type of device with a certain type of power in order to play those type of games. So then why would you necessarily be looking as much on games that don't require that, right? So you can say, well, some indie games do well on PlayStation, yes, but it's mainly the ones that PlayStation promotes, and they have marketing deals and stuff with exclusivity deals. We saw Stray and I can't think of the top of my head, some other ones, Sifu and stuff like that. Those are ones that were marketed and promoted by Sony, right? Not every game gets that type of treatment.
Like some of the stuff they do, I wonder, it almost feels like they're spiting the Japanese.
That's never go that
far. The way they've closed the Japanese studios, the way I think it was Matsumaya was hinting that they're trying to talk with the customer service side, and it's all in English now.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that earlier. It's all stuff's in English.
The way they had that specific Japanese focused state of play, it's
and there was really nothing in there that's going to move the needle in Japan. That was a Japanese state of play for the West.
They've never done that for any other country or in any other ethnicity. They're like, oh, here's our European state of play. Here's our North American state of play. They only made that Japanese state of play because of all the criticism.
The criticisms,
that they weren't. Yeah, like you never see Nintendo do that. And Nintendo will say, hey, these are third parties.
Well, Nintendo does tailor specific directs for Japan. Like they'll make a direct that's like similar to the one we have in the West, but they're doing games in it.
Yeah, it's like a 10% difference, but it's like Nintendo's not like, here's a Japanese Nintendo Direct, like, or a North American or, the Czechoslovakian Direct. It's like they just put the games out and they let them speak for themselves.
Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
but anyway, there's a whole other thing. That country doesn't exist in name anymore. But anyway, let's talk about this article, right? Because I've got stuff to say about this. I'm sure you do too as well. So this is on IGN exclusively, and this is it has a statement from Square Enix, which is very, oh my god, we're getting into this. Okay, so IGN, Square Enix responds to Final Fantasy 16 sales concerns, points to PS5 install base, and then underneath it says in smaller text, the subtitle says, how is a diverse game really doing? Now I think that's a little snipe. I think that's a kind of a little snipe at the game by saying that. But anyway, so this article says, oh, this is funny. Square Enix insisted sales of Final Fantasy 16 are, quote, extremely strong, telling IGN the game has sold well relative to the PlayStation 5 install base. The PlayStation 5 exclusive sold 3 million copies during launch week, a figure that sparked debate online about whether it had met Square Enix's sales targets, which we don't know, by the way. We don't know what their sales targets are, and Square Enix hasn't said what their sales targets are, alright? Final Fantasy VII Remake shifted 3.5 million copies in 3 days when it launched as a PlayStation 4 exclusive in April 2020. And, I will add, because it doesn't say it here, of those 3.5 million copies, 1 million of them were in Japan. That was specifically specified by Square Enix. So they went out of their way to say 1 million was in Japan, and that was physical and digital in 2020, okay? We haven't got any numbers for Japan this time around. Final Fantasy 15 sold 5 million units in its first day, but the game launched on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in November 2016 and remains the fastest selling game in the history of the series. And this is the bit that's important, okay? So let's listen to this. The debate was fueled by a Bloomberg article, right, which we'll get onto in a second. An article that was on Bloomberg Japan in Japanese and also on the English language Bloomberg, right? The article pointed out that the sales of the game in Japan had dropped dramatically in the second week after launch. That initial sales had lagged behind previous games in a long-running role-playing series, and Square Enix itself was grappling with weak momentum on its flagship franchise. That article was specific to Japan. It was talking about Japan. It wasn't talking about worldwide, okay? In a statement from Square Enix, issued exclusively to IGN, right? Not IGN Japan, not Bloomberg Japan, not Famitsu, not 4Gamer, no, to IGN English language, IGN, in response to a Bloomberg article, right? The company pointed to the difference in install base between PS4 when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and the install base of PS5 when Final Fantasy 16 launched last month. Quote, with 38 million PlayStation 5 consoles shipped globally as of March 31st, 2023, sales of Final Fantasy 16 surpassed 3 million units worldwide several days after its release in June 22nd, 2023, Square Enix said. Taking into consideration the sales figures of the acclaimed Final Fantasy VII Remake and the difference in size of the install base of the PlayStation 4 at the time of this title's release, we can see that the attach rate of Final Fantasy 16 is considerably high given the PlayStation 5 install base. Square Enix considers the initial sales results of Final Fantasy 16 to be extremely strong, and we will continue to carry out We will continue to carry out a wide range of initiatives to encourage even more people to play the game. What are these wide range of initiatives that don't involve dropping the price of the game? I'd like to know. I'm going to read not the whole of the rest because there's some bit talking about an analyst. I won't read that bit. I'll read some of the rest of this. Square Enix is infamous for its wildly inflated sales expectations, with everything from Tomb Raider to Hitman considered failures internally despite selling millions of copies. I know all those stuff that they said, it was all about their Western games division, which they don't have anymore. IGN sources familiar with the performance of Final Fantasy 16 confirmed sales had slowed considerably since launch, but the game was not yet considered a disaster some claimed it to be. I don't know who claimed it to be a disaster. In Japan, yes. Worldwide, no. One source pointed to recent comments from producer Naoki Yoshida that DLC may be on the horizon, and thus further investment in development time is a key indicator Final Fantasy 16 may have legs. Then it goes on to talk about some of the features and the game being different to previous Final Fantasy games. Now, yes, what they wrote here was in response to this Bloomberg article, like indirectly in response to this Bloomberg article, which I have here. This is the English version. Now, this was also on Bloomberg Japan, right? And this was an article from Takashi Mochizuki, and is also he's got some comments from a analyst. Now, before we get on to that, I'd like to get Mara DK's thoughts. Are you there, Mara DK? Oh, you're there. Okay.
Yeah. This PR statement has so many caveats.
Right.
Like, for even just the first sentence, Square Enix has insisted. Well, actually, I think that's from IGN, but extremely strong. That doesn't tell us anything. I mean, if they're strong, then why don't you just give us a 1 month update on the sales? It's been a month, right, since the game came out.
So if no update.
Strong, shouldn't you feel comfortable giving us a 1 month milestone? I mean, all this discourse and all this spinning about install base and everything is like, you could just put that to rest if you just gave us an update on the sales.
There's a lot of caveats in what they said. Well, when you consider install base, you consider this and da. And it doesn't address anything in this Bloomberg article, which we talk about in a sec. This article was talking about the sales in Japan being bad. It's not talking about worldwide sales. Now, to be clear, my opinion with the worldwide sales when they was announced, my opinion was that it was just okay. It was just middle of the line, okay, acceptable, fine, all right. It wasn't bad, it wasn't a disaster, but it could have been better. That was my opinion. I gave that opinion on Twitter. Oh God, people just popped off. You can't say you think it was just okay. It's got the sales were good. It was good. And I was like, well, it's just okay. It could have been better. You know, that was my thoughts. The sales were middle of the line. It could have been better. The sales in Japan was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster in Japan. You're talking about the sales dropping like 50%. That's a disaster. That is millions and millions and millions lost that are just gone.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like just based off the PR they gave, right? It was like 3 million in 6 days compared to like 15's 5 million in 1 day. And even if you assume Final Fantasy, 15 only sold 5 million in 6 days, the same as 16. It's down 40% from 15. So you look at like Japanese sales that are down about 50%, and you've seen in the UK they're down about at least 20 to 40% from 7 Remake. So that's probably like even higher, maybe 30%.
And we did get an update about the European sales, because the European sales that we got, I've forgotten. I don't have. This is why I keep asking people to please post stuff in the topics. I've lost that thing now because it was posted on a Discord and the general notice board thing. But there was a tweet from Christopher Dring about the Europeans, and that does include digital, about it was strong. It was like it was stronger physically, but I think it was down. but I don't have that in front of me, so I can't like quote it. But it was something like that. Yeah, I mean the UK is more digital heavy, and you could say
even then they're down.
It's even down. Then it's down. Now the thing is that when you have multiple regions where that's kind of you're having the same thing, like it's showing the same thing, it's usually that is the picture that it's down. Now, yes, Final Fantasy 16 is on the smaller install base, but again, whose fault is that it's only on PlayStation 5? Whose fault is that there's no PlayStation 4 version? Whose fault is it that there's no PC version at launch? Whose fault is it that there's no Xbox version? That's Square Enix's fault. They chose to do that.
Here's the thing about the install base thing that they're bringing up. I don't think I've ever heard any company
bring up install base. No, I can't even think of that.
The last time I remember was when Breath of the Wild launched with Switch, and it was Kimishima, and it was only because. And this was specifically in NA, not in Japan or EU, but that was only because Breath of the Wild had more than a 1-to-1 attach rate on Switch, and that's notable. I mean, who wouldn't want to brag about that? Right?
Yeah. So,
but when all you say is extremely strong,
and
you bring in this install base caveat, it's like, well, if you want to bring up the install base thing and compare it with 7 Remake, like then you're just making 7 Remake look bad.
So I want to say, Square Enix. Why are you only making... No, here's the other thing. I don't know who they spoke to, right? But it's just that they spoke with Square Enix. It didn't say who... There's no named person that they spoke to. That's telling as well. There's no named person of saying... That's basically like... We're not doing that because we don't want like one person to be singled out with the getting any blame or getting any flack.
And the thing is, if the sales are so great in NA and it's going to save the sales, they would be touting that. They would be bragging about it. I mean, when Tears of the Kingdom launched, not only did Nintendo give like 10 million overall in 3 days, but they like each individual region was like, oh, this is the best European launch. This is the best. This is the highest Zelda launch in Japan. Like they gave 2.4. They broke it down because they were proud about it, right? But you look at Square Enix. They've said nothing since the 3 million in 6 days.
No Japan breakdown, which was very happy to talk about Final Fantasy 7 Remake. What was I gonna say? Yeah, no Japan. Oh God, I've lost my train of thought now. There's no Japan breakdown. No other regional breakdown. No. I completely lost my train of thought now.
And it's like, why are they comparing 7 Remake and not 15? 7 Remake is a part 1.
With 15. They're not comparing it with 15.
It would look bad.
Because it looks really bad. You're talking about a franchise that has stagnated basically way beyond it could have been. Yeah, I'm saying not only that, we had stuff that happened before the game had even come out, right? We had producer Naoki Yoshida saying, don't expect... I can't remember his exact words now, but basically it's saying, that maybe it's not going to be explosive sales straight away, and this 18-month plan supposedly that he mentioned once in whatever interview it was. We had that. Mm-hmm. Then we had the rumour from Imran Khan. Now, it was a rumour that he reported on that Square Enix was slightly panicking about the pre-orders, and the Japanese sales have not been good. So why did they not give why did they not tell us about Japanese sales? Why didn't they, in response to this Bloomberg article written by a Japanese reporter about Japan and talking to a Japanese analyst, why did you not talk to Bloomberg or any Japanese outlet at all? There's no named person that they spoke to. Who's this Square Enix spokesperson that you spoke to? Why did you give a statement in English to an English outlet, right? Talking about worldwide sales with all these caveats in response to Japan. This article about Japan. Where's our Japan breakdown, Square Enix? Why are you not telling us? You told us about Final Fantasy 7 Remake all day.
I just want to continue with the article because I gotta head to work in about 10-15 minutes.
Sure.
But moving on, they say Square Enix says, 38 million consoles shipped globally as of March 31st. It's like, why are you citing outdated install base numbers?
Probably because that's all they have permission to do from Sony.
Yeah.
and then you move on, and it's like, install base. It's like, well, if you're gonna make the attach rate for 16 look good, then you're just making 7 Remake's attach rate look really bad, because it's like, what, 5 million? I mean, at launch it was like 3.5 million on like 100+ million install base. So it's like, what are you doing? It's like,
Yeah. So here's
Just-
they linked to their own article.
yeah,
Here it is, and it probably says somewhere again about where it's sold in Japan. I don't know if it says that in this article, but they did put out a oh no, it doesn't even say it on this one. Oh, this is just a review. Oh god,
Yeah.
well,
Well,
IGN's
and
so
then-
dumb. That's a review. Never mind.
and then they give another caveat. They say Square Enix considers the initial sales results to be extremely strong. It's like, well, that considers is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's like, I can consider a lot of things. I mean, they don't even say like Square Enix says the sales are strong. It's just they consider them to be extremely strong. So that's like a double caveat, another layer of like wishy-washiness, that it's like, just come out and say the sales numbers if they're so strong.
And it says
you know?
Square Enix said. It doesn't even say who this spokesperson was, who they spoke to. Nothing. And so you can't put the blame on anybody because it's just Square Enix. You don't know who they spoke to. Now they definitely spoke to Square Enix. I'm not saying they didn't speak to. This is definitely a statement from Square Enix, right? But the fact that it's not a named person. Oh, this is the PR officer. This is the marketing officer. This is head of Square Enix West or anything like. It doesn't say anything like that. It's just Square Enix, which is weird.
Yeah. Like, who in Square Enix? It's
Who?
Like, and people are saying Square Enix said they're happy and they're satisfied. It's like, they never said they're happy. They never said anything about meeting or surpassing expectations. All they said was consider them to be extremely strong, which is like not verifiable. It's extremely subjective, and it's like, it tells us nothing.
Yeah. And this is a PR damage control statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
when
words like strong
was the last time this even happened? When a company had to, a publisher gave out a statement because there was another article, and it is this. They are referring. It doesn't say that there, but it is in response to this article.
Yeah.
It is basically in response to this.
Well, because they know IGN is the biggest like gamer website, and they know like a lot of the readers aren't like the.
Why didn't
most
they
readers
speak?
aren't, like,
Okay, but why didn't they speak to IGN Japan? Why didn't they speak to Bloomberg, who made the article? Why didn't they speak to Mochizuki, who wrote the article? Well, you know why? Because they don't want to answer questions about Japan, about the
They don't
sales
want to
there.
spin it in Japan. Yeah, because the question would be, okay, how did it sell in Japan?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, even with Metroid Dread, when that launched, like, Nintendo touted the exact NPD figures, saying how which showed how satisfied they were with the sales. With this game, it's like they didn't announce the sales after 3 days. They waited like another 3 days, and
yeah, well, that was sus right off the bat. I thought that was. I'm like, when it got to 3 days, but it's like, oh yeah, where are these? Because I was expecting it to be good. That's basically.
And even then, they thought like, oh, we'll get a win if we go to IGN because they have a big, reader base, and most of them aren't probably the most up to date or following sales numbers. So that way we can kind of muddy the waters and kind of muddle the messaging, and people will keep arguing about, oh, Square Enix said they were strong, so they just kind of want to mess things up a bit and make it less clear. But even IGN says their own sources, they said they had slowed 16 sales had slowed considerably since launch, and it was not yet considered a disaster some claim it to be. Like, so even IGN is saying they've heard legs have slowed a lot, and like this statement, not yet considered a disaster. It's like, so
nobody said it was disaster apart from the Bloomberg article, which was specifically talking about Japan.
IGN is saying that that's
that some consider it to be. Yeah, I just want a quick. No, go on.
Here's the thing. It's like, what does not yet a disaster mean? I mean,
so that's what
you're
IGN
basically
said.
saying it's almost a disaster, right?
In my opinion, it's not a disaster worldwide.
Well, think of the opposite, right? Oh, it's not yet considered a success, so that would mean it's almost a success, right? But they're saying, oh, the game is not yet considered a disaster, So it's almost a disaster. It's approaching a disaster.
So,
Because
but that's IGN's words, though, right?
well, I mean, they're citing their sources. So if
I mean,
if we're gonna believe
okay, but I,
if
but
we're
I,
gonna believe if we're gonna believe Square Enix's wishy-washy PR, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't also take into account IGN sources. And they're not saying anything crazy. They're saying, yeah, legs have slowed considerably, and that's confirmed with the UK legs and the Japanese legs. So I don't think it's too far. It's probably not a disaster. It's probably it did okay, which is what you said.
I just want to quickly address this. Mousy says, I think IGN specifically reached out to them, but I'm not sure. I think it's IGN helping them. Look, it says here, look. In a statement from Square Enix, it's issued exclusively to IGN. The company pointed out the small difference, blah, 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 blah. This sounds like Square Enix went to them to make a statement. Yeah. They chose IGN to make this statement for. This doesn't sound like IGN. Otherwise, they would have said.
Otherwise, they would have made a press release. But they didn't make a press release because they didn't say anything. They just threw out a couple of buzzwords like
to
IGN.
Strong. Yeah.
They don't have it. There's nothing to make a PR release with here. They didn't give any information.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It wasn't a PR statement because it's nothing new information. They made a statement to IGN where they can't be like kind of questioned more directly. They didn't say who. They didn't say who made this statement to who within Square Enix made this statement to IGN, and it definitely looks like it says issued exclusively to IGN. It looks like that they reached out to them. They chose IGN to make this statement to. That's what I'm saying. Why did they make it to IGN and not Bloomberg, who made the article?
Yeah.
That's saying it was
did you see that picture where like they gave Yoshi Peace like flowers when he was in Indonesia or something?
No.
To congratulate on the 3 million sales.
Oh right, okay.
Well, remember that picture?
Doesn't really sound very interesting, but.
No, just his face in the picture. Let me see. Was it Indonesia?
Well, this is definitely a confusing statement. Yeah, it's there's caveats in there. Like I said, I think overall it did fine. It's not a flop, except for in Japan it was a disaster. And I think that if the sales had been more normal, like being at Final Fantasy VII Remake and 15 levels in Japan, that it wouldn't have been this. Now I want to show like a quick graphic. Hang on, where is it now? Oh, it's got organised here. Yeah, okay, so this was made by Tokuri 10 on install base, right? And this is like the Final Fantasy franchise Japanese sales comparison. We can see here they've even put nice little graphics of the various protagonists. So at the top here is Final Fantasy 12 in the red. Then the green is Final Fantasy 13. And then these two lines are crossed over each other, so you can't see them that well. So, but this is Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which you can see tracked almost the same. They did sell almost the same in Japan, both of them, right? Final Fantasy 7 Remake had slightly longer legs, and then all the way down here in the purple was Final Fantasy 16. So this is how far Final Fantasy franchise has fallen off in Japan, even in just, the past few entries, right? Like that far. And this isn't digital rise. You don't go from 2 million to like 300,000 and then then you've got, then you'd have to have like multiple hundreds. It'd have to be like a install rate of and a digital rate of in the hundreds then to say there's millions that's going on in selling digital. That's not happening. It's just dropped that much. It really has dropped that much, which is sad to see. Like why, like how this has happened, but this visualization is by, as I said, Tokuri 10 on the install base. They made this graphic, which I thought was pretty interesting. Mario DK, what are your final thoughts?
I just think that the silence and the lack of clarity speaks louder than the actual PR statement that was given like to one outlet in one region. I mean, There's just caveats upon caveats upon caveats.
One region.
When you actually break down the statement and you like look at the language they use, at the end of the day, if you give us the numbers, then nobody has to argue, you know.
Give us the numbers for
and
Japan.
the numbers, yeah, and the numbers we did get, 3 million in 6 days, are down quite a bit, and that's all that matters.
It's
and the
down,
legs are not
down.
great.
And the legs are not looking to be great. Now,
Yeah.
the real issue is like I don't understand why they have not. Well, I kind of do understand why they have not addressed this article directly and why they went to IGN in the States in English.
Yeah.
And you could have gone and spoken to Mochizuki. They didn't do that though.
Oh,
They
'cause
completely
he would ask
avoided him. They know what he's gonna do. He's too critical.
Because then the question in the article would be like, oh, when Square was inquired about Japanese sales, there was no response or no comment, and that would look even worse. So.
Exactly. They don't want to talk about it.
But then even then, like I said, they went to IGN, and even IGN's own sources also heard that the legs were bad. And they said not yet a disaster. I mean, not yet this disaster is not a success or like a breakout success.
Well, that's what I
So,
said. Like it's middle of the line sales for
Yeah,
what?
But I think if this game hadn't had the Sony marketing and the 2-year exclusive payment, it might have actually been a disappointment or a disaster.
No, I think if this game had been able, they'd launched it on PC day and date, maybe even Xbox, that it would have had a higher sales potential. The Sony marketing helps, sure. It definitely does help, and the assistance they got from Sony. But is it worth it for the contraction of your top
brand
franchise, your top brand? Really, because you've got this franchise that I feel should be selling like 15-20 million that is like stagnating, and that's why I wanted to bring, like we brought up Capcom. Capcom announced that Resident Evil 4, which released in January, has sold over 5 million units, and I didn't appreciate. I did like a reenactment of this new press release coming across the desk of the higher ups in Square Enix, and they just looking at it and they go, "Nani? How is Capcom managing to sell so many units of that goddamn zombie game? What is Capcom doing differently that we are not doing? We just can't figure it out. It's just too confusing. Oh, we've tried nothing. We've tried absolutely nothing. What are Capcom doing differently? You just can't figure it out." That's what I feel like is going on at Square Enix. It's just like, oh no, what's Capcom doing? And you just it's like, what the hell? Like, so, why are you getting lapped by Capcom? Why is Monster Hunter selling more than Final Fantasy? Explain that to me. Monster Hunter, and I mean, you can say, well, that's a multiplayer game. Resident Evil isn't. Resident Evil's not. It's even more like a kind of, it's survival horror type thing. It doesn't have as big of an audience as multiplayer hunting game. Fine. Let's look at Resident Evil. Look how much that's selling. What's Capcom doing differently, Square Enix? What are they doing? What you're so close, Square Enix, to figuring it out. I don't know, man. I just don't know with Square Enix.
I found the picture, the tweet. It's in the live chat.
Oh, it's just him with a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, but how happy does he really look? I mean,
he looks like he's at an airport. He's probably tired.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I don't care about it.
I don't. Yeah, like I said, I'm not like putting too much on it, but it's like
he's just been caught. He's just been caught at an airport.
He's barely smiling. Like.
Yeah, because he's probably tired. He's probably knackered, Mario.
Yeah.
He's traveling all over the world promoting this game. Apparently, he works 70-hour weeks as it is. He's probably like.
I'm just gonna say that like Aonuma and Fujibayashi had much bigger smiles on their face.
Yeah, because
they were traveling too. They were in New York at the launch of the game.
Come on,
doing
man. Come on. You can't just be looking at one picture of one guy caught at an airport, like, and then extrapolate anything from that. Come on.
This was the best.
Don't be daft, Mario. It's DK. Come on.
This is the best smile he could muster for 3 million copies sold.
He He has.
I don't know.
It literally looks like he's been caught at an airport. It's him at an airport, and to be quite honest, I don't care. This isn't news that he's gotten flowers. Who cares?
I don't know. Either way, their silence speaks.
And so what? Even if he's not smiling, who cares? He's, that's got nothing to do with the sales of the game.
Either way, the silence from Square Enix speaks louder than any picture of Yoshi P ever will. So, I was just kind of.
Yeah, even in the chat, they're saying you're reaching. Johanna says you're reaching.
I was just
Come on. Come on. This picture means nothing. Who cares? He's tired. He's traveling around. He's at an airport. He's been caught in a candid picture that he's not even, It's just it literally looks like he's at an airport. He's carrying his luggage.
I'm faffing around. Don't
You're faffing around. You're faffing around. Not to worry. Mario DK. Thank you for joining me today. I'm aware that you have to go at some point.
No worries.
So thank you so much for co-hosting with me.
Yeah.
A pleasure to have you on. And your graphs were very, very good. It'd be good if you could... No, get out of here, Finny Mac. Finny Mac's calling me the Yoshi P Defense Force. How am I the Yoshi P Defense Force? Oh my god. Get the benefit of the doubt, man. He's been caught at an airport. Thank you for your graphs. It would be really good if you could post these somewhere, even if you post them on Install Base. I don't know if you've done that already. It'd be really good if you had these on Install Base or somewhere.
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'll post them later because I'm gonna go to work, and then when I get home, I'll post them on Install Base.
Post them and put like your name on it or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna do it last night, but there was too many other comments I had to not respond to, but I just had to make some statements about this.
He took it on Install Base. He's out here. Yeah. He's fighting a good fight on Install Base against these people. Yeah. But they're talking about the 18-month plan and the test, the big test. Final Fantasy 16 was the big test. Well, the big test. And everyone went silent on. They were saying that for. Oh my god! People who don't go on Install Base, you weren't there. It was going on for months, like it must have been a year plus. This has been the big test, and then as soon as the game comes out, silence. Nobody even says anything. Like, what was that all about? It's just, come on, man. It's just like, oh god, they all disappeared. You've got your Reverie Collector's Edition. Congratulations, Johannes. Congratulations.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on the general state of about 16 and PS5 in Japan.
So in conclusion, Square Enix is damage controlling. I think they're damage controlling. They didn't respond directly to this article with any named PR person at all to a Japanese outlet. They didn't even have to be in Japanese. Mochizuki's fluent in English. Speak to him in English on the English Bloomberg. Doesn't matter. You didn't speak to Mochizuki. You didn't respond to any of that stuff there. You just talked about whole nother stuff. I think the sales of Final Fantasy 16 are okay worldwide. It's okay. Like I said to you before, it's just okay. It could have been better, but it wasn't a disaster. That's my opinion, right?
But Yoshi P's own expectations were, that they wanted to grow the franchise. And
right. No, I think that is what they wanted to do, but we can't discuss it in detail now. But I feel like they did the opposite of everything you need to do in order to grow your franchise.
So in that way, those expectations, they failed to meet them. I mean, overall, if you look at the money they got from Sony and the totality, have they turned a profit? Yeah, they've probably turned a profit. I think that's.
Oh no, they've definitely they haven't done. This isn't a Forspoken situation. It's not a disaster where they've lost a load of money. Now, of course, they've made a profit. They got a bag from Sony. Have they grown the franchise? No. If anything, they've contracted the franchise. In my opinion. Yeah.
So that's on Square Enix to figure out for 17 and 6 remake or whatever else is next. 9 remake, 10 remake.
Oh my god, you shouldn't have said that. People go, oh my god, 6 remake, 6 remake, oh my god, people, you got people sweating, they're sweating,
Kitase talked about it on that very luxurious 35th anniversary roundtable with Sakaguchi and Kitase.
Oh yeah, I saw. I didn't get around to sitting down and watching that actually. Yeah.
They were drinking champagne and eating nuts, and it was,
were they? Oh, nice.
In an all white room on big leather chairs. It was very weird.
Oh man, I was just going.
I don't think I would see that from any other company. I think that's like a Square thing. Can you imagine Nintendo doing that?
They would have them in a room, but it'd be like a normal conference room. It wouldn't be like luxurious.
But they would definitely not be drinking champagne from like wine glasses and.
Maybe not.
eating nuts.
You might be eating nuts.
Yeah. Anyways,
Next time, that's
it was a
Airbrush
good-
Kiryu's time. Yeah, where's Airbrush Kiryu,
Yeah.
son? He's gone radio silent.
yeah, it was a good chat. You know.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much, Mario DK.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got work. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's morning for you, right? So
Yeah, it's about afternoon, but it was a good to be back on the show. Sorry if I was like kind of cutting you off at points. I just had a lot I wanted to say about my graphs and just the general like past couple of weeks that I missed out on.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming and co-hosting and your excellent graphs. You've really put a lot of work into this.
Yeah.
So
I'll keep updating them. I plan to add PS3 and Vita in the future.
please.
So we have.
Can you add
even
Wii?
more
Can you add Wii
comparisons.
U just to round it off? Please?
Oh yeah, I'm curious to see if they're also around that 3 tie ratio.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
closer
'cause-
to PS5.
Yeah.
'Cause I know that'll just make PS5 look worse. So
They were both
We'll see
very
how-
bad, but I don't know if they were
Yeah.
PS5 bad. I don't think they were PS5 bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So are you gonna continue the show after this, or are you gonna end,
I'm going
or-
to. Yeah, we've got a couple of more things to cover, and then we're going to
Okay.
end in like 15, 20 minutes, hopefully.
Okay. I might listen in the background as I'm getting ready for work then.
Okay, you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very
So-
much, Mario DK.
Yeah. Nice. No worries. Have a good one.
You too. Have a nice day. Okay, let's look at a couple of these comments. Oh my god, there's a ton of comments here. Hi, Timor! Welcome! I don't know if you're still here. Oh my god, there's a whole bunch of comments. Sorry, we really got chatting. I don't think that Square Enix bag IGN getting. I don't think IGN got a Square Enix bag. Why would Square Enix give them a bag to give them a statement? That makes no sense. J2. Why would Square Enix be giving them a bag to make a statement for them? That's gonna make them money. That makes no sense. Come on. Let's see. I'm trying to get back on your comments. Hey, it's RJ says to Vinnie Mac, you can say PlayStation has. I see games that was successful on PlayStation is still successful, but on Switch. Also, keep in mind all powerful system is in the go for Japan. Yep. J2 Blue responds to Vinnie Mac. PlayStation themselves conditioned their audience to want games like they make now. Modern day PlayStation don't care about those types of games. So I guess you're referring to like the double A type games or even single A type games. Yeah, J2, they didn't give them a, come on man, there wasn't a bag. Why would Square Enix give IGN a bag? That Square Enix bag, IGN, Joker. Vinnie Mac, Sister J2, I completely agree with you. Only sad thing is going to get worse as console focus more and more power. Those bubblegum bright styles are going to be the thing in the past. Well, do you know what, Vinnie Mac? On one hand, Square Enix has made, they made Final Fantasy 16, but they've made something literally the colour of bubblegum, the Foam Stars. Foam Stars, that live service game that Square Enix is making exclusive to the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, not putting on PC or any other platform at all. Does that make sense? Yes, that live service game, that's literally a clone of Splatoon. That game, that's going to do amazingly in Japan. Just wait and see. It's not going to flop at all. Let's see here. J2 Blue in the sky. Finny Mac, that's why I'm worried about games like Ratchet and Clank. We might not get games like that anymore, despite Insomniac saying they still like making them. Ratchet and Clank, I feel, is a franchise that's probably safe. I think Insomniac probably has the freedom to make those because they are so successful with, the Spider-Man games. So I think that and those Ratchet and Clank games haven't been crazy seller, but never been crazy big sellers. But the last one did pretty well, and it was very well received. So I don't think those games are going anywhere. But you saw that game isn't going anywhere. But we saw the type of game that went somewhere, and that was, we just saw Pixel Opus close down, and their game was last game they had Concrete Genie. That style of game gone. Ratchet and Clank, I think, will still be around, at least for the foreseeable future. Vinnie Mac says, I don't believe for one that moment when I think it gets Insomniac going to make a Ratchet and Clank sequel. They got Spider-Man now, then Wolverine, then Ratchet and Clank, unless you're doing a side team. Okay, the first thing is that Insomniac is actually enormous. They are, I can't remember exactly how many employees they've got, but they are very, very big. Very, very. That's how they're managing to put out, you know, a Spider-Man game, Ratchet and Clank, and then a side Spider-Man game, and all these games. Yeah, they're enormous. They're enormous. So yes, they do have. I think they've got capacity to do another Ratchet and Clank game. They do have side teams. Yes, they do. They have many teams. They're enormous. You got another 3-4 years before Ratchet and Clank style game comes out. That's horrible. Well, maybe it is another 3-4 years. It could be. And what I mean, there was that almost that gap. No, it wasn't quite that long between that remake. They had a remake, and then it was a Rift Apart. Someone remind me when the remake came out. I've forgotten. RJH says, didn't Sony co-fund the game? That could be the reason they're okay with the sales of Final Fantasy 16. They didn't have to spend that much, and maybe there's been no confirmation that the game's been co-funded. We know they got support from from Sony in terms of some development support. That's not the same as like the game being co-funded. This is a game that would have cost like 100 million, 150 million, maybe up to 200 million, somewhere between 100 and 200 million probably to make, and marketing on top. Sony did a lot of the marketing. Did they co-fund the game? There's no evidence that the game would have been co-funded. That no one's come out and say that. You can speculate, oh well, they co-funded the game, but there's no positive evidence to say that it was co-funded. We just know from statements of like Yoshi P basically saying that they had some support from development support. Some people have now that's what's happened over time. That's grown into like, oh, Sony they almost co-developed and co-funded the game. Like, I've seen it kind of turn into that. I don't think it was like at that level. I think they gave them support though. Yes, co-funded would be like almost sharing the cost, like almost 50-50, right? Like to the tune of 10. I mean, they spent a lot, but yes, so Sony probably spent a lot of money for the exclusivities for sure. I don't know if that's the same as co-funding. I wouldn't call it that unless we had Square Enix say that it was co-funded. Like, I probably wouldn't use that term personally. J2 Blue says, I think Rift Apart did pretty well for the type of game, so I don't think they won't make a new one. So hopefully they after Wolverine. Yeah, I think they'll continue. That's no reason why they won't continue making those games. Like I said, they've never been crazy big sellers. They've normally done well for what they are. Rift Apart was a very well received game, so I don't see any reason why they wouldn't make more of them. Vinnie Mac says, Ratchet and Clank should not take 4 years to make though. Well, why is that, Vinnie Mac? This is how long games take to make nowadays, you know. This is the same for any developer, really. Nintendo's not getting out, you know, Zelda games faster than that, or Mario games faster than that. Where's the new Mario game? Where's the new 3D Mario at? You know, new 3D Mario since Odyssey. Those aren't like big graphical showpieces, so they just take that long to make. Those type of games should be turned out almost every 2 years and 2.5 years. Ideally, we should already have the second one, but Insomniac is busy. I mean, yes, they could. In fact, they did used to do that. They did used to make games for PSP, like smaller titles. Yeah, like spin-off Ratchet and Clank games that they could get out faster. They did used to make those. The PSP had them. And there were spin-off titles. So yeah, they did make those ones you're talking about. And obviously back then, game development wasn't long in general, so even the console games didn't take as long to make. But yeah, just in general, like just game development in general takes longer, like across the board. So if they were prepared to make those games. And like, yeah, I don't think not every single one of those Ratchet and Clank spin-off games was made by Insomniac. Some of them, there might have been other developers involved. Somebody could correct me on that. I feel like there was other developers involved in it or something. But yeah, they could do that. But who knows what they want to do with the IP. J2! J Arthur says Resident Evil was March. Oh, was it March? Oh, sorry, I thought it was January. My mistake. J2 Blue says Yoshi P smoke waves between many cancer sticks to smile. Now I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Yoshi P and Airbus Kiryu-san are the same age. They're the same age. Okay? I hear people saying, oh, Airbus Kiryu-san is so young. He's like, no, he's not. He's like 50. He just looks young. Yoshi P looks his age and then some. He probably has been on them cancer sticks. J2 Blue in the Sky says Miyamoto be hitting that. J2, you need to stop it. Stop it. J2 Blue says Miyamoto be hitting that sake because Pikmin doesn't sell well. Pikmin has never been a big. Hopefully the new one will do better, but put it this way, it's got the best chance that any Pikmin game has ever. If this new Pikmin game doesn't do well, then Pikmin is just an L flop franchise. Basically, it's just there's no chance. Like it's got its own mobile game. It's got every mainline game on the Switch all in one. It's on the biggest install base it's ever been. It's had quite a big marketing campaign for the game. Oh my god, I hate when I'm hitting red bars on this goddamn thing. Try not to hit red bars. I know, just joking. I know you're joking, J2. It's just me and my review. That's okay. Just stop it. Oh my god. On the Discord, Kika says they gave IGN a limited statue. Of what? What limited statue? That's a Square Enix bag. Nintendo really makes two games of the same series on the same system, is what they told Ubisoft. Well, Ubisoft are dumb at the end of the day. I think you just need to face facts. It's dumb. Hey, it's RJ. Didn't see your Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I think when you added the Deluxe and the original release. Yes, but on its original release on the Wii U, it didn't. That's the point. It had to be re-released on a successful console. Like, just on its own, they didn't. You have to add together the original one and the Deluxe to get to 3 million, I believe. So let's quickly finish off. Now, I want to quickly look at that Bloomberg article, which is here. Now, this is written by Takashi Mochizuki on the 6th of July, right? So, he says, sales of Square Enix Holding Co.'s new Final Fantasy game tumbled during the second week after its release, a sign of continued weak momentum in the video game publisher's biggest titles. Final Fantasy XVI's mainstay Japan sales fell almost 90% to 37,763 copies during the week to July 2nd. Video game tracker Famitsu estimates showed Thursday. The figure does not include digital downloads. The latest installment in the long-running role-playing franchise debuted 2 weeks ago exclusively on Sony Group Corp's PlayStation 5, with initial hopes that the $69.99 game, obviously I mean US dollars, would be the blockbuster Square Enix needed. Square Enix shares fell as much as 1.3% before pairing losses and gaining 0.1% during early morning trade in Tokyo Friday. The broader Topics index was down 0.7%. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't follow the stock exchange, let alone the Japanese stock exchange. I have no idea what that is. Sorry, I forgot to mute myself. The Tokyo-based company said it sold over 3 million copies worldwide during the game's first week, a much slower pace than its predecessor, which hit 5 million on release day alone. So they're referring to 15. Shares in Square Enix slid 14% since the release of the big budget game in June. Now, obviously, they're referring to Square Enix shares so much because this is Bloomberg, obviously, right? The game's drop-off in its second week isn't atypical. Final Fantasy 15 in 2016 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake in 2020 both incurred a similar 90% sales decline. So, quote, everything in 16 is just so different from the previous Final Fantasy games that fans loved, Toyo Securities analyst Hideki Yasuda said. Even when taking into account the number of people who might have purchased the game digitally, the figures are low, he said. It would be difficult to sell more without a deep price cut. Okay, and that's a total article that Mochizuki wrote. Now, he did also have some comments on Twitter following this, not that one. Where is it now? Following this article. No, not that one. Oh my god, fathers. This one, sorry. I'm all over the place with these. The tabs are not organised. I apologise. And I did make a folder, but they're not organised. So Mochizuki was pretty critical, and he said, some say Final Fantasy, and he's referring to Japan, okay, when he's talking about this, Japan. Some say Final Fantasy 16's weak sales are due to elements out of Square Enix's control. No, it wasn't. It was Square Enix that decided to launch the game on PS5 only on June 22nd at $69.99. No one else is. Right, so he's saying $69.99 because he's tweeting in English. Normally he like double posts in Japanese and English. But hang on, where's the rest of that? Hang on a sec. Let me go down. Right, it's here. Okay, yeah. And then he said, and I think it's entirely possible to sell a few million copies in Japan at launch while making that game a global blockbuster. Don't say leaving Japan behind is something you can't help with if to pursue more non-Japanese fans. So sorry, it's let me say it again. Don't say leaving behind Japan is something you can't help with if to pursue more non-Japanese fans. Right? So yeah, he's saying you don't have to not sell in Japan in order to sell worldwide. You can have your cake and eat it. You can do both, is what he's saying in the tweet. And then yeah, so he's tweeted in Japanese, and then I think that's all to do with that. And he's just talking about sushi. So yeah, and he done this poll. Final Fantasy sales in Japan, week versus 15 so far. Do you blame? This was a poll, right? So the game that came out with 19.5%. The PS5 install base / download, that was 34.6%. Macroeconomic competitions was 9.1%. And Switches Japan was 36.8%. So just edging out the install base. The people saying Switch is more Japan. Japan is Switch. Well, both. It's probably both. Yeah. So this is Mochizuki was pretty critical. So I'm like, okay, why? Can you see what I'm saying? Like, why did Square Enix not go to Mochizuki to make a statement for Bloomberg? Why did they go to IGN in the US? It doesn't make any sense, because it was indirectly in response to that article, because that's the only article that was super critical about Final Fantasy 16 sales. None of the articles in the West really said it was some articles may have said, really compared it to the previous game, saying, it didn't do as well as these ones. But they didn't say it was like a disaster or anything. But in this article, it's basically saying it's bad. It's like, this analyst saying they need deep sales in order to sell more. It's not going to be able to sell more without a deep price cut. And we've seen the sales of Final Fantasy 16 now drop, pretty dramatically versus other recent Final Fantasy games. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, here we can see that it's dropped now. Yes, that 90% drop off is actually pretty normal. So you have to remember this is just the case in general for JRPGs. They're just so front loaded and they drop off. It's all of them. It's not just Final Fantasy. It's like pretty much all of them. But I think what Square Enix was hoping for, and Mario DK did mention this. Someone could Yoshi P said they wanted to reach a broader audience. Now, that seems like they did stuff that was counterintuitive to, in my opinion, right? So limited it to PlayStation 5 only, not even a PS4 version, no PC version at launch, and then making the game mature rated, like a higher age rating across the board, like it's been higher rated in every region's, respective board, ratings board. That automatically limits your audience, right? So if you have a game that's more like teen rated, or that would be like 12, I think that would be rated 12 in the UK, right? Where's my British listeners? It'd be 12, right? I don't know. Sam Atlas doesn't even listen to this, do they? I bet Jago's not here. Of course Jago's not here. Jago wouldn't be here. But anyway, I think it's 12. I think it would be 12. I think it'd be rated 12, and I think the next rating up is like a 16, and then it's 18 in the UK, I believe. So if a game is rated 12, like for example, the Xenoblade games are rated 12. Are they rated 12? What are they rated? Am I thinking 12? Am I thinking 16? Oh god, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to look this up now because I actually don't know. Hang on, I don't know. Hang on. I'm just using Xeno. That's what it Z, is it? Xeno Blades Chronicles 3, for example. What was that rated? Shocking. I don't know. Oh, it was a 12. I thought it was a 12. Yeah, so for example, this game was rated a 12, right? It's on sale here, look. On Amazon, it's only $29.99. Lowest price in 30 days. Go get it. Cheap as chips. So this is a 12. You see right here, it says 12, right? Peggy 12. So I think it goes like 12, 16, then 18, right? So this is rated 12. Meaning that, a teenager, a kid, could go into a store and buy it. Right? If they would be able to go and buy it without needing an ID or something like that. Because it's just rated 12. So you'd have no problem buying that. So it does make a difference for some certain games that you're trying to sell. And Final Fantasy, the other games did have like a youngish audience, like teenagers used to buy it a lot. And I think with the current rating it has now in Japan is like a 0D. I want to say it's a D, which is the one before Z, which is the one where it's like, that's the highest one. Yeah, so I think it's one rating above what it was before. I think it might have been a 0C before, and I think now it's a D. But I'm just trying to. God, where's the that Amazon Japan? That is what it is, isn't it? It's a 0. A 0D. I swear it's a D. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's a D, right? So I think the previous games were like a C. So it's one rating above it, but like it kind of makes a difference when it comes to whether you can have a child, or I mean like a teenager, to go into a store and buy this by themselves without a parent, without any ID or something like that. That makes kind of a difference, right? So I feel like doing that at limited audience. Now the reason they did this is because they were going for an audience in the West that's maybe into The Witcher or the God of War games or something like that. They were aiming for those type of games. Now I think Final Fantasy 16. Now to be fair, I'm not very far into this game, but going by what like kind of maybe long-time Final Fantasy fans have said, and what I'm seeing is that I feel like it doesn't go far enough to appeal to that audience. So yes, they've made changes to more appeal to the West, but in a lot of, especially with the combat, the combat with the Devil May Cry combos and you're jumping all over and all this, that's very Japanese, man. There's not like many like those games we're talking about with like The Witch or even God of War's even like, it used to be more like Devil May Cry, the old ones, right? But it's kind of less like that now. It's not like the combat you're seeing in this game. And another thing, that the character models, like, they're more realistic than obviously 7 Remake or previous Final Fantasy games like 14 and so on, but they're not like God of War realistic. They still kind of look like not real people. I don't know how to explain it. They don't quite look like a real... They're fine as character models, but they don't have that same, like, completely realistic... They wanted to... Maybe they wanted to kind of try and keep some of that Final Fantasy in there. But, like, if you want to appeal to that audience, I feel like you need to go all the way. I feel like they didn't go all the way to do that. And then also they left long-time fans dissatisfied. Now, is the game a good game? Yes, it's a good game. But if you alienate some of the core audience, which a lot of them were in Japan, a lot of the core audience is there, you alienate some of those people, and they probably lost hundreds of thousands of sales in Japan. You alienate some of those people, and not just in Japan, other parts of Asia and worldwide, of course, as well. You alienate some of those people, and then you don't quite go far enough to get, they've added sex and blood and violence and stuff like that, but you haven't, there's other things that make the games that they were aiming for popular, and it's the fact that the tone is different, but it's like, they try to tone it down and not make it like more JRPG like, but in even though they've sort of cut back on the RPG elements, it's still kind of there, the Japanese type stuff. FF16 needs more cat. Well, that's what I'm saying. 14 is full of cat girls. Why do you think FF14 is so popular? It's full of cat girls. That's why. It's part of it. Full of cat girls. There's bunny girls. There's bunny boys now as well. They added bunny boys. They didn't have them before. So yeah, he does need more cat girls. I don't think there's any in 16. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't got very far into the game, so I haven't seen any. Anyway, also seen I brought up this thing about horses before. Anyway, I'm going off the track. I'm not talking about horses. So yeah, that was part. I wanted to go over that quickly. And that's why I put in the title, Final Fantasy 16 sales in Japan looking spooky, because they are looking spooky with how this game's dropping now. What you can do, you can do a thing on Niche Barrier where you can compare how do you do that again? Where you compare the games. How you do it? Yeah. Look, you can do this. Look. Now we're gonna put in Final Fantasy. Oh god, we got to do it in numerals. Okay, Final Fantasy 16, and then we're going to do it, and it comes up in like a number, and then we're going to do Final, not that, we're going to do Final Fantasy. Do you know what, right? We've been playing this goddamn Pikmin music this whole time, I forgot to change it. No, this is getting changed. This is ridiculous. You know what's happening. It's too late, right? We've had this goddamn Pikmin music for too long. Yes, it's happening. The Final Fantasy VII lo-fi hip-hop mix is back. It's made its return. Yes. I've had enough of that Pikmin music. I can't take it anymore. Oh my god. Okay. Back to Niche Barrier. This is way more calming than that goddamn Pikmin. Yes! J2! Yes! I don't get, just for that, I'm turning it up. Just for that comment about, oh no, I'm turning it up. Turn it up. Not too loud though. I can hear this in my ear holes. This is way more relaxing than that goddamn Pikmin music. I want to hear Pikmin dying all over the bloody Pikmin getting eaten up and dying all over the place. Why is game where these little things are getting eaten up anyway. It's ridiculous. This is way more calming. I feel much better now. Okay. So let's compare these two games. Okay, so here's Final Fantasy VII Remake and here's Final Fantasy 16. And here's the relative sales. So, what is this now? Okay, so that's first week and then LTD. Obviously, we don't have as many sales for, or as many sales weeks for 16. But you can see, just obviously it launched way higher for Final Fantasy. We can do a comparison with 15 as well, because 15, if you want to talk about store base, and 15 had a smaller install base than what 16 launched at. Now, if you go just on paper, yes, I know some have been scat, whatever. We don't know how many. Just to go on from the on paper numbers, so you can see the issue here. When it comes to also the legs of the game, you tend to get this. Now, this curve like that happened to Final Fantasy VII Remake because of it was the conditions it launched under. We've been shortages at launch because of the pandemic, and it had a really high digital rate. Like, I can't apparently it was really high because of because it was I mean, launched in April 2020, alright. So that's why, alright, we know what was going on in April 2020. It wasn't looking pretty, so that's why that's what happened. So that does have a boost, to be fair. Like, if we're being fair, it does have that. But even still, like, this Final Fantasy 16 is launched way lower anyway, right? So that's the comparison that you can see here on niche barrier. So I believe that we can compare 15. I don't know why I've got to type in the full goddamn title, the whole thing. God. With numerals! Got them numerals. Okay, 15 and then 16. Because, like, you can't, like, you have to do it like that, because you can't, like, that's all that comes up into. I just point that, so I've got to type the whole thing. And they've got X, V, Y. Why? Okay, long. Anyway, so here's 15 versus 16. Alright, so total sales for 15 in the Famitsu chart was over 1 million. And at the moment, 16 is at 396,000. So again, this obviously looks very similar to how 15 to 7 Remake, because it sold almost the same, very similar. Now the difference with 15 is that the install base, you see, at the time of that launching in Japan was a little bit under the install base that 16's launched on paper. Because we don't know how many of those goddamn PS5s are remaining in Japan. I don't know. No one knows. Less than what's on paper, but, you know, we can't necessarily put a finger on it. Some people think it's half of what's there. Some people think it's like a third. You know, we can make estimates or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say one way or the other, because I can't be certain to do that. There you go, 7 out of 10, not enough cut. He wouldn't give something that didn't have enough cut girls as high as a 7 out of 10. J2, don't be crazy. That's ridiculous. He wouldn't give it that high. Let's see. Mochi's. Sorry, I sold a little over 2 million. Oh, okay, it was 2 million. Thank you for the correction, RJH, regarding Pikmin 3. J. Arthur says, Mochizuki's latest tweet is a bit snarky. His latest one? What did he say? His latest tweet? Where is that? What, on here? You should play Balan Wonderworld if you haven't. No, I don't think I'm bloody doing that. Thank you very much. No. Because it's, yeah, he's being snarky about So okay, so it tweeted back in May 2022. Square Enix confirmed it had a lawsuit case with Yuji Naka, but declined to comment further. As for Balan Wonderworld, it is a game that we come into confidence from Q&A session during earnings. Yeah, that is a bit snarky. You should play Balan Wonderworld if you haven't. You just suddenly dug up a tweet from 2022 to say play that. Yeah, he's being snarky. He's being snarky in regards to 16. He's kind of like, he's a little bit snarky on 16 because look, all the other people under here seem to think it's 16. Somebody's typed something in Japanese and it's got readers added context to this tweet. To this automaton tweet. What the hell? Just take the L, Mochi. Why has Mochi got to be taking an L? Square Enix has got to be taking an L. What? How? Why is Octo expansion trending? What is Square Enix got to be taking the L? How's Mochi taking L's? What's Mochi taking L's for? I don't understand. What the hell? I wonder if it's the same statement they're going to get in regards to Final Fantasy 16 performance there. Do you know what Square Enix... Do you know what statement they're gonna get? They're gonna give 0, no statement. What is this? Why does it have readers' comments on the bottom of it? I don't know. Oh my god. Okay, this is in Japanese. This is translated via Deep L. I have a Deep L Chrome add-on. You should use it if you haven't. Don't use Google Translate on the thing. This is better. Not perfect, but... Mr. Mochizuki, rather than that old story, we've got a rebuttal from Square Enix. Let's have a wrestling match with Mochi, who is also a hot topic in the gay community, and I refute it. I also think 16 is doing very well, considering the popularity of PS5. It still has a lot of multi-tracks left to go. Multi-tracks? I guess it means like I don't know what that means actually. Bio RE4 has already sold over 5 million copies. We can count on our brothers overseas. Hashtag FF16. Well, there you go. Person with a snake avatar. I don't know what this is. Automaton Arc. Oh, it's just talking about the same thing. It's just Square Enix. Yeah, they refuted the sales about worldwide, not about Japan. Why is there readers? What is this? Provides important context, easy to understand. Now, what does this say? Okay, it says the cited IGN article adds an interview with Ampere analyst, a market research firm, to show that there's a certain consistency in the claims made by Square Enix, but that part of the article is not translated. Oh, okay, so this article that's on Automaton left that part out. Also, this article's title, in light of the PS5's penetration rate, refers to the percentage of PS4 sales compared to past FF15 and FFR sales, and does not mean Square Enix is being stingy with the total number of PS5 units sold. So this context is specific to this Automaton. This isn't the original IGN article. This is Automaton reporting on that, and they lift out parts of the articles. That's what they're saying on that thing. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, he's been a bit snarky. He's been a bit snarky there, because that's definitely. You don't just suddenly dig up a tweet from May 2022 about Balan Wonderworld. You don't just suddenly dig up. He's being extremely snarky. Yeah, he's definitely being snarky. I agree. Let's see. I think I caught up on all the comments. Oh no, wait, it's a copy. Yeshua says there's no way to spin Japanese sales of FF16 in a positive way. That's why Square Enix didn't answer Bloomberg. Exactly. They didn't speak to Bloomberg. They didn't speak to Bloomberg. They didn't speak to Mochizuki. Didn't speak to that whatever his face, the analyst from the Japanese analyst. They didn't speak to Famitsu magazine. They didn't speak to Automaton. They didn't speak to any other Japanese magazines or outlets or media things. No, they spoke to IGN in the US. They didn't speak to IGN in Japan. They didn't speak to IGN in Japan. They spoke to IGN US. J2 says Xenoblade is a 12. 3 is a 12. Yes, it is. Isn't Final Fantasy 16 Peggy 12? I believe it. Peggy 18. I believe it is. Let me check. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it is. Let's check. Why is it like? Why don't you just show me that straight away? Wait, what the hell? Huh? Huh? Final Fantasy 16. Why do they show me old ass games? Oh, here it is. What the hell? Oh, no, so this site will show me the numbers on it. The UK one, but the Japanese one doesn't. I don't know why. Not on this browser anyway. Yeah, it's 18. You see here, it's an 18. That's the highest rating you can get in Europe. It's at 18. You see, Jedi Survivor is rated a 12 because they want kids to buy it. It's a Star Wars game, they want kids to buy it. That's the difference. That's what makes a difference to sales as well. The age rating. You know? So the higher that's gonna be, the more you're gonna limit your audience. And limiting your audience at the same time as drastically changing the style of the game, yeah, it's gonna have an effect, you know. So that's part of what's happened. Even Spider-Man 2, you'll notice, is a 16, which means teens can buy it, right? So they want teens to buy it. It's not quite as a. I mean, they could go those at 12. I don't know what the first game was rated, but this one's a 16. Because that tells you they want. Why is it not rated an 18? It's because they want kids to buy it. They want teens to buy Spider-Man. That's what increases. That's what increases the sales. Yeah, this one was a 16 also. Miles Morales was a 16, right? Because it's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. Think about it. Think about what the Spider-Man the Spider-Man movies were. I think the Spider-Man movies were rated like. Yeah, I think it was was it PG-13 or something here in the UK? The Spider-Man movies, yeah. In fact, in Europe, look, this is in. Is this the rating for Germany? It's rated 12. So it depends on the region as well, but it's lower there. Oh, this truck is such a banger. I don't care what anyone says about this remix. You're just out of your goddamn minds, that's why. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeshua says 12 is the standard rating for a JRPG in Europe. FF16 is indeed rated 18 by the PEGI, yes. J2 says that's weird how they have a higher rating for Spider-Man 2. Well, it's two different ratings boards. You see, I was just showing the this is I think this is a German. Isn't this German rating board? The German one? Yeah, they have this big old ugly. Wow, it's huge. This thing on the big old green thing. The PEGI one's smaller. But yeah, sometimes they have to adjust like actual box art to accommodate that big USK rating. But yeah, the PEGI one is 16. I think the previous games were 16. So you rate a game 16. You make sure it's rated. So it would have made sure, like for example, right, Uncharted is the same thing. It's rated as 16. This is not a mature rated game. It's 16. It's 16 because they want teenagers to be able to buy it. That's the reason that, look, and this is rated 18, right, which is equivalent of a mature rated in the US. Not the same thing. So yeah, why did they make sure that Uncharted games were rated lower? Because they wanted teens to buy them. That's why. I know it's ugly, J2. In the US, we don't have the rating. We have the T rating, which is 13 and up. Yeah, so we have 12 and then 16, then 18. Below that, it's like, I think is there a 10? There's a 7, age 7, and then there's a Peggy 3. It's the lowest it goes. No, I think it's just 7 and then 12. But yeah, we have 2 different ones. I think, yeah, I mean, you can tell, you know, Jedi Survivor, then this game is doing well. I'm pretty sure this game is doing well. And they wanted it to be a 12. They made sure that this game received a 12 rating in Europe. And probably something similar in the US and other regions, equivalent to this. Because they want kids to buy it. They want kids to play this. Why didn't they make this one a 16 or an 18? Because they want kids to buy it. Obviously same with Hogwarts Legacy, is the same reason. You know. Yeah, the previous... Oh no, this was rated higher. No, where was the other one? Okay, no, this was rated higher. But again, that's the individual ratings board. You know, so that was rated 12 and that was rated 16. Yeah, I mean, it's the individual rating board what they might decide, but they definitely want the game overall to be like teen rated, as in teenagers can buy the game. So Final Fantasy 16, by doing that, you know, releasing it on limited install base of just one console, suddenly raising the age rating, changing the tone, then yeah, those sort of things are going to affect, especially in Japan, and that's what we've seen basically. Oh god, just remind me of that Mochizuki tweet. He's so cheeky. He's so cheeky. We're going to finish it. There was a couple of other things that I guess at this point it's kind of old news, so it's not like, I prefer talking about the sales stuff and not just talking about news, because by the time I do this show, all this news has been covered everywhere. That's why I prefer to go into like sales analysis with people and talk about those sales and stuff like that. That's the content that you can't get in an audio format anywhere else. There's nowhere else that does this. There's nowhere else that's so nerdy and geeky that will do a goddamn show talking about the Japanese console game sales. You know, it's all we talk about. There's no other audio format that does this. This is the only place you're going to get this. Hit that like button. Hit the like. I always forget to say, hit the like button, please. Helps out the channel. Ignore that motorbike. Oh yeah, we talked about Momotaro hit 4 million in Japan alone. This game has not been released outside of Japan. It's not been released on any other console other than Switch. That's down to Konami. They chose to do that, right? Why? You have to ask Konami. I don't know why. But this game is wildly popular in Japan. It's always in the charts. It is a board game. It's a board game. I've seen footage of it. It looks like a board game. It's a board game where you are going around different, like, actual real locations in Japan. They're releasing a follow-up. We talked about this before. They're releasing a follow-up to this game later this year. It's right here. Now this one is not just in terms of like where it goes, where they go in the game. It's not just limited to Japan. They're going all around the world, right? You can see, I've showed this before. You can see in the images a whole bunch of different flags in the background, different countries, and then you can see the artwork around the edges, obviously representing different countries, right? That's what that is. Different artwork, different characters around the edge. So you'd think that then maybe they'd release this one outside Japan. Nothing's been announced. I don't know. I don't know if they'd release this outside Japan. Maybe. Probably not though. So yeah, that game sold 4 million altogether. Now if we look in the chart to see that game. Well, hold on, not done. Let's do this. What is in this game? In this chart? Whereabouts is it? The one time I don't bring up the Kirby barrier is this show. we're finishing soon. I've got way over time. What time is it? Oh man, I'm way over time. Okay, well we're not going to cover it. We're going to leave the Microsoft stuff because you all know the news already. What Microsoft, there's 10-year deals, blah 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 blah. You know it already. Where's that Momotaro game? Where is it? Oh, here it is. So this game has had great. Look at the legs on this game. This is wild. Look at the legs. First week was 12% of the LTD, man. So it's in the chart now. This game is still in the chart right now. And here's the sales trajectory of this game. You can see it launched in 2020. Oh my god. So it's at 2.8 million physical, almost 2.9 million, and the sales is 4 million total. So you got like 1 million plus that's like digital of that game. It's still mostly physical, right? 1 million plus is digital. Around that, roughly. Where's the article? So here. Very successful because, like I said, it's probably cost them 100 yen to make this game. And they're selling it for like goddamn full price game. Yeah, it's 6,300 yen, man. So they've made absolute bank on that. Yeah, so there was a 10-year agreement. So I don't need to go. We don't need to talk about that, really, do we? We're alright. Oh, and then there was like breaking news. They've appeared the surprise PS5 Slim and PS5 Slim Pro and PS5 Pro leaked. Surprise. Project Trinity and release date. When are they saying this is releasing? Okay, the development kits will be received by November 2023, but they're going to be. It's targeting. This is what this is rumor. Okay. Targeting a November 2024 release. All right. This rumor is from Tom. Is it Tom Henderson? Maybe it's Tom Henderson. Right. No! The lo-fi stopped! No! Oh my god, this is ridiculous. The lo-fi stopped. Right, so I believe we covered everything this week. Well, not properly, but we don't need to talk about the Xbox stuff, it's fine, right? With the 10-year deals, it's just there's a 10-year deal. They made 10-year deals and the deal's going to close and blah blah blah, and Sony capitulated and signed the 10-year deal for Call of Duty on Sony consoles. And that's it basically. Oh man, it's getting really late and I've not studied for the day. So I'm going to have to do that before I go to bed. Well, yeah, we covered everything. I've gone over time, so let's wrap up the show. Thank you everybody who joined me today. Thank you to my amazing co-host, Mario DK, who made those fantastic graphs. Mario DK can sometimes be found on our Discord server. We find the link in the chat. Pikmin Week, yes, Kike, it is Pikmin Week. Pikmin 4 is out today, so go and try it out if you want to. I believe there's a demo, so if you are so inclined. Yeah, so Mario DK, you can find him on Installbase quite often, and you can find him sometimes lurking on my Discord. But yeah, he's great to talk to. So thank you to everyone that made it out today. Thank you, Dank Meme, Yeshua, Johannes, Finny Mac. Hey, it's RJH, J2 Blue, J Alpha, Geronimo. Mousy was sort of here at the. I think she found some headphones. She skived them from such. She got those headphones from someone. She didn't have them at the beginning. She had some headphones. Timor, thank you for popping in. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, obviously I wasn't over at Benji Sales show because I was here. By the time I was starting this show, he's the one that I was there. I couldn't make it. So I'm gonna listen to the VOD later. Yeah, J Alpha said J2 Blue. I think I said hi and bye to everybody. Hi, bye. Everyone who turned up, and yeah, Kike was here. Oh, Red Hood, yes, was briefly here. I think Red Hood was briefly here, so Red Hood as well. And don't forget, check us out on Discord, link in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this video, it really helps us out, helps the hopefully help the channel grow and help more people reach and hear us, and hear the only audio format that specifically talks about the Japanese video games console market. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.